What you won't hear me do is argue facts. Facts of this, facts of that. I'm not going to waste your time doing that. I've chosen to speak from the heart.
Darrell Brooks, case number 21 CF 1848. Appearances, please.
I'm here as a third-party intervener in this matter. I do not dispute any of the facts in the charging instrument. And for the record, I do not consent to or agree to being called that name that you have identified here today.
The record should reflect that the individual known to this court as Darrell Brooks is present in person in custody. I just also want to make a record quickly that a number of documents were left by Mr. Brooks in the holding area just outside the courtroom. They have been put on his desk today. It's all of the autopsy protocols that were provided to him yesterday and a copy of the pretrial offer. So I just wanted to make that record. Have been advised that all of the jurors are here and ready to go. I presume the state has available its next witness.
We do, and we'd also move State's Exhibit 162A into evidence.
As to 162A, Mr. Brooks, any position on that?
Yeah, I object. I haven't even seen it, first of all. And second of all, again, for the record.
Mr. Brooks, I'm just dealing only with the exhibit right now. Exhibit 162A is received. So I'm not going to address any preliminary matters at this point. I've already addressed a number of things yesterday. The jury is to be brought out.
No, it was some things that needed to be discussed about the paperwork from yesterday.
We'll take that up on a break. You can look over it. You can make a note and pass it to
I've
my clerk.
already looked over it, Your Honor. With all respect, I think there's some things.
Mr. Brooks, I'm not going to deal with it right now. It's paperwork. I just wanted it notated that you left it and now it's being provided to you again.
I'm not referring to that paperwork.
I'm not dealing with the paperwork from the clerk of court's office either. I am not the custodian. We're going to bring the jury out.
Okay, but she should know that she's trying to
Mr. Brooks,
get me to pay.
stop. I am not addressing it.
It has to be addressed, Your
All right,
Honor,
I'm going to take a quick break and make sure the jury is ready and we'll come out the
If I
bench.
don't address it now.
All right, thank you. The jury can come on out.
So you're not going to address this civil matter?
No.
I was told to pay for something under a civil statute.
Mr. Brooks, I am not the custodian. Bring it up with the clerk of court.
How
I'm
can
not
I bring
addressing
it up
it.
with the clerk of court? How am I supposed to do that? So that makes me wonder if it's a
Mr.
civil
Brooks,
case.
the jury's coming out. I'm not going to address your request for open records. I'm not the custodian of the records, sir.
Who's being sued? My Sesty Trust is being sued?
Mr. Brooks, this is an irrelevant matter that you're attempting to bring up in the presence of the jury. The record should reflect these interruptions.
Before the jury came out, Your Honor.
And I told you I wasn't going to address it. Please.
Okay, so it's a civil matter. Who's being sued? My Sesty Trust? Because how can I be
Mr.
sued?
Brooks, you're talking about an irrelevant matter between you and the clerk of court.
It wasn't irrelevant when I got the paperwork from the clerk of courts. I was simply
Mr.
trying
Brooks,
to address it.
I'm not going to address it. The jury will
So
disregard
I'm being
these
sued?
irrelevant
This is a civil
comments.
matter? We haven't addressed subject
All right,
matter
thank you,
jurisdiction yet at all
everyone.
either?
Please be seated. The jury
So
will
we're not gonna
disregard the
address subject
statements
matter?
Mr. Brooks is making about subject matter jurisdiction. They are a misstatement of the law.
Yes. No,
All right,
they're not.
and
just like this is a civil case.
Mr. Brooks, the jury's here. Please
Just like
show
this is a civil
respect
case.
and decorum.
According to this document, this is a
Mr.
civil
Brooks,
case,
please stop.
which means someone is being sued. Civil is a suit.
Mr. Brooks, you're talking about an irrelevant matter.
I have the
I'm
paperwork
starting the
sent by the paper
trial.
course right here that says it's a civil matter.
Mr. Brooks
So
has
what's
nothing
being
to
sued?
do with
My
this
Session
case.
Trust is being sued?
I have no idea what you're talking about. So,
I got the paperwork right here.
all right, I'm
How
going
do
to
you
excuse
not know
the
what I'm
jury
talking
right
about?
now, given this disruption. All rise for the jury.
This should be properly addressed before the jury even comes out. That's why I tried to properly address it before we even went on the record.
Mr. Brooks, stop.
I'm not gonna. This is.
You are
I
not
was
being
given
respectful
this
to this
paperwork by you, Your
proceeding
Honor.
or to
With all
this
respect.
jury. No,
With
it's
all
not.
due
With all due
respect.
respect,
With all due
stating that
respect,
doesn't make it
I was given
respectful.
this paperwork by you,
Mr.
from
Brooks.
Monica Paz.
Stop talking
The
till the
clerk of
jury
court.
is out.
Okay,
Thank you.
So why couldn't we address this before they came out?
I'm
That
not
was the
going to
time-
address it.
That
Bottom
was the
line.
time to address it, though. We're supposed to do all the addressings before the jury comes out, before we start the matter.
Please
I was
be
trying
seated.
to simply address paperwork that was given to me by you, Your Honor. That states
Mr. Brooks,
it states that
you
this
have
is a
interrupted
civil
me
matter.
repeatedly. You are on the verge of being removed to that courtroom. I don't want to
On-
do
on
that.
what-
I want you to stay here.
on what
But
fact of the
you
law, Your
keep
Honor?
interrupting me and bringing up irrelevant matters. I told you yesterday as a courtesy that was provided to you so that you would frankly not complain that you didn't get it as quickly as possible. Okay? I am not the custodian of the records. If you have an issue with what was provided to you, how it was provided to you, then take it up with the clerk of
She
court.
can't
But
charge
from
you.
now on, I am not going to be the messenger and give you documents that you request to the custodian of the records or from the custodian of the records. They will simply have to be delivered to you at the jail. But that is in response to your discussion or whatever we want to call it this morning. I'm not taking it up, all right? It is irrelevant.
It needed to be noted for the record.
It doesn't need to be noted, sir. All right, the jury's coming back out, and I'm going to warn you, if you bring this up again, I will pause and I will remove you to the next courtroom for being disrespectful, for being interruptive, for being disruptive, and for bringing up irrelevant matters in front of this jury. You will forfeit your right to be present for the direct examination of this witness.
I object to that.
Did you hear what I said, sir?
No, I did not. I object to that, Your Honor.
Well, you can object, and your objection is noted. But if you interrupt when this jury comes out, they will go. I will have them taken out again, and you will be removed to the next courtroom.
You can't. What is the legal basis for that ruling, Your Honor?
Illinois versus Allen, sir, and all of the other cases that I've cited previously. I'll make the appropriate record. Stop interrupting me. The jury's coming out. We're continuing with this trial despite your repeated efforts to disrupt. Yesterday, sit down. Yesterday alone, sir, 17 interruptions, not including the opportunity that I gave you where you spent 15 minutes, discussing what were primarily either irrelevant or baseless accusations and requests not based in law or fact. I was abundantly patient with you yesterday.
And you still haven't verified by proof any of what I said.
And none of that is required, sir.
Because it is. You can't verify.
Your belief that that's the law doesn't make it so, Mr. Brooks. Your belief that these are legitimate legal positions doesn't change the law and doesn't make it so. So, again,
relevant because you didn't want to.
I'm going to step off and give Mr. Brooks 5 minutes to cool off, and when that happens, I'm bringing the jury out,
I'm not angry at all.
and then we will
I just wanted
continue.
to. I don't.
Thank you, everyone. Please be seated. All right, the jury can be brought out.
And not addressing the subject matter jurisdiction yet again.
Thank you, everyone. Please be seated. Who do we have on the witness stand?
The state calls Assistant Chief Craig Learman. I'd like to direct your attention to Sunday, November 21st of 2021. Did you attend the Waukesha Christmas Parade that day?
Yes, I did.
Were you alone or with other people?
I was with my family.
Overruled.
Will you please put up for the jury exhibit number 15, which has previously been received and published.
Go ahead.
Do you recognize the area on the map that you're looking at?
Yes.
Could you draw a little X for us where you were standing with your family?
Objection.
Overruled.
The screen in front of you, I'm sorry, the screen in front of you is a touch screen. You can use your finger.
Sure. Okay.
Could we now please display for the jury exhibit 56? Recognize this intersection?
Objection, hearsay.
Do you recall what happened at approximately 4:39 p.m. that Sunday afternoon?
Objection.
Overruled.
Yes.
Can you tell us?
Sure. To my left, to my right was the Milwaukee Dancing Grannies. To my left was a group from the Catholic community of Waukesha, and there was a break in the parade right in front of me, an opening. Felt like something was coming, but I didn't know what. Then I realized something wasn't quite right. At first I could only see the top portion of the vehicle, but I could see that the vehicle was traveling at a much faster rate than any of the other participants, so clearly something was wrong.
Could you describe the vehicle for us?
Red Ford Escape.
What happened as the SUV got closer to you? What happened next?
I was concerned at that point in time. So when it passed by me, it was very close, probably maybe 10 feet away.
Were there parking spaces in front of you where you were standing?
I believe there were, yes.
Do you recall if the vehicle passed through the parking spaces in front of you at all?
Objection, relevancy.
Overruled.
Describe the lighting conditions at that time. What were the sunlight, street lights, things like that?
It was getting darker, but it was still
How good of a look did you get at the driver?
a very good look.
Can you describe, or can you give us a physical description of what you remember?
A light-skinned male, black, mid to late 30s. What I would describe as like dreadlocks.
What was the driver doing as he passed you?
Objection, hearsay.
The window was open. He stuck his head and actually like the upper portion of his body out the driver's window and looked back behind him.
And he actually stuck his head out the window.
Objection, leading the witness.
Correct. Crossed my mind. He actually may fall out. That's how far out I perceived him to be.
What happened next?
At that point, when he looked back and then he kind of turned towards the front, based on his body language, my heart kind of sank because I felt like what I thought could be maybe a medical emergency or something like that. To me, it clearly felt like it was an intentional act. Then he turned forward. He grabbed the steering wheel. He pulled himself up off the seat and cranked the steering wheel to the right.
So let the record reflect that the witness used both hands at the 10 and 2 position to simulate the driver's hands on the steering wheel.
Objection to that.
What happened as the driver cranked the steering wheel to the right?
Unfortunately, when he did that, he essentially steered the vehicle across the parade route at a diagonal angle directly through a group of people that were walking with the Catholic community of Waukesha.
Based on your memory of where those people were in the road and the SUV's path of travel, what would have happened if the SUV had simply maintained a straight path instead of veering to the right?
Objection, speculative.
Overruled. He may answer.
I believe that there was a gap between where the Catholic community from Waukesha was standing and the parade spectators.
What happened next?
Unfortunately, when he drove through that group, he struck many of them. Some of them, unfortunately, actually ran over.
Did you at any point see the vehicle slow down?
Objection, speculative.
No, not at all.
Brake lights?
Nope,
Did you hear a horn honking?
not at all.
I'd like to put up exhibit number 133. This is a 5-second clip. Let me know if you recognize what you're looking at after you watch it, okay?
Objection, hearsay.
Overruled.
What does it depict?
The red Ford Escape traveling through the closed parade route, very close to where I was standing.
Move exhibit 133 into evidence and ask to publish.
Objection, hearsay.
Could you just tell us which part of the screen does the SUV enter?
Objection, lead the witness.
Overruled.
Why was it playing so fast? Was that normal speed?
Mr. Brooks, it's not your time to ask questions.
Could we put up for the witness only, please, exhibit number 132? Do you see the vehicle changing position in the road towards the end of that video?
Objection, lead the witness.
Overruled.
Can I see it again?
Sure. Is this an accurate representation of what you saw that day?
Yes.
I'd like to go back to the 6-second mark. Set it to 40%, please.
Go ahead.
Can we go back to the 6-second mark?
Objection. What's the relevancy? Keep going back.
I presume you have a question for the witness.
I do, yep.
All right. Overruled.
Using a little X again, can you draw on the screen the approximate area where you would have been standing at this time?
It would have been somewhere down in that area.
So the sidewalk running kind of up the middle of the screen here, that'll run into Maple?
Yeah.
And then you would be on the other side of Maple?
Objection, lead the witness.
Overruled.
Do you know what side of the street this camera is on, north or south?
Objection, speculative.
Okay, we're at the 3-second mark. Do you see the SUV that you've been talking about in the video right now?
Objection, lead the witness.
Now, paying attention to the tail lights, what did you see the tail lights of the SUV doing in the last few seconds of that video?
Objection, what's the relevancy?
I didn't see the tail lights. I didn't see any brake lights.
But the rear-facing lights were illuminated in some way, correct?
Objection, lead the witness.
Sustained. Please.
Tail lights, not brake lights.
Did you see any lights on the back of the vehicle?
Yeah.
Which ones?
Tail light.
And what did you see the tail lights doing in that portion of the video?
Objection, lead the witness.
Overruled.
Tail lights were on.
But the position of the vehicle, did you see that change?
Objection, lead the witness.
I did not.
You testified earlier that you thought there might be some type of mechanical issue. Did you maintain that opinion?
No.
Why not?
Objection, speculative.
Overruled.
Seemed to me like he was excited about what he was doing.
Would please put up for the witness exhibit number 34, again for the witness only. 134, excuse me. This is a 16-second clip. We're just going to play first 7 or 8 seconds for you. Do you recognize that video?
Do I recognize the vehicle in the video?
Yes.
Yes.
Objection, that wasn't the question, Your Honor.
Based on your recollection of the scene that day, this would be where in relation to where you were standing?
West of my location.
What happens to Main Street as you go west of where you were standing?
Objection, lead the witness.
You testified earlier that the driver's window was down when it passed you, is that correct? Does this video accurately depict how the SUV looked, including that window, time you saw it?
Objection, speculative. No window was open.
Overruled.
Move exhibit 134 into evidence and request permission to publish.
Objection, hearsay.
Permission to publish is granted.
Now, if we could put up for the witness only exhibit number 9. What is it?
That's the red SUV that I saw in the parade that day. Damaged pics in the front of the vehicle is consistent with what I saw. The driver's window is open, like I saw, and that's the driver that I saw driving the vehicle that day.
I'd move exhibit 9 into evidence and request permission to publish.
Objection, speculative.
Permission to publish is granted.
What did you do after the SUV drove out of your field of view?
Checked on my family. They were physically unharmed, so then I went into the road to see how I can help people.
Did you?
Yes.
Who?
One was an adult male, and then one was a small child. The adult male was conscious. He complained that he couldn't move his legs. And then the young girl was unconscious. She was laying on her stomach, face down, with her head tucked essentially down underneath her, like onto her chest, essentially.
What happened happened as you came upon that girl with her head tucked down into her chest?
She was not, like I said, she was not conscious. She was breathing, but the breaths were more like snoring, but she was not breathing normally.
Did you help anybody else with the group that you've identified as the Catholic communities?
Objection answered.
Eventually, there were several people that came and helped the young girl with various levels of medical training. So they were helping her to the point where I really could not provide any additional aid. So I kind of walked around to see if there's anybody else I could help.
Was there?
I actually ran into an officer who was also off duty from Franklin. We worked together then to help at least one other person into the back of a sheriff's squad that had come onto the parade route to try to help get people to area hospitals.
What type of vehicle was that?
It was a...
There's been an objection. It's not speculative.
What happened next?
By that time, there was a lot of medical equipment that was arriving on scene. We ended up using like a makeshift stretcher out of a blanket, and then we carried one of the victims into the back of the sheriff SUV. The officer who was with me from Franklin, he actually rode with her in the back, our female victim, and went to area hospital.
Do you recall the first name of that female victim?
I believe it was Marisol.
Marisol.
Objection, legal.
It's a clarification.
Overruled.
Thank you. I have no further questions.
Would you happen to be on duty today, right now, if you weren't testifying?
Yes.
And so right now, would it be fair to say that you are on the clock?
Yes.
So on the clock, would it be fair to say that you're getting paid right now?
Yes.
Would that be for your testimony or just because you would be on the clock otherwise?
These would be my normal work hours right now.
So you're being paid to testify right now as we speak?
Objection.
Grounds.
Asked and answered.
Grounds.
He may answer.
Yes.
Any idea why you would be getting paid to testify?
Been subpoenaed by the state to be here.
So the state's paying you to testify?
The city of Franklin is paying.
To testify.
These are my normal work hours.
So testifying in open court is part of your duties as an officer?
Yes.
So you've done this more than just this time then, would that be fair to say?
Yes.
And each time you were paid to do so?
Yes.
You made mention to the state of Wisconsin. Is that who you were subpoenaed by?
Yes.
Do you recall by whom?
No.
You were in fact subpoenaed though, would that be fair to say?
Yes.
And you don't recall by whom the subpoena was delivered to you, the name on the subpoena?
No.
So would it be fair to say that upon being subpoenaed, you were in touch with the state of Wisconsin?
Waukesha County DA's office.
Do you recall who those interactions were with?
Not specifically.
So it would be fair to say you had an interaction with the Waukesha County District's Attorney's Office, but don't recall who you spoke with. Do you remember anyone by name?
The gentleman at the table.
That the record reflect that the witness made a hand gesture towards the prosecution table and identified Attorney Whichow?
Objection.
So you knew that it was a strong possibility that you would be called to testify then, I'm assuming. That'd be fair to say? Did you seek to testify in any way?
I don't understand the question.
Were you actively seeking to testify? Like, on your end, did you reach out and volunteer testimony?
After the incident, I did complete a report of what I saw that day.
So after that report that you submitted, you didn't follow up on what was happening in the matter at that point?
No.
So it'd be fair to say after you gave the report on the incident, you just went back to work and continued your normal duties. Would that be fair to say?
Yes.
Did you follow much in the aftermath of the matter at that point after you submitted your report?
Not really.
Don't recall seeing any news reports related to the incident?
So.
You made reference at one point to, well, let me back up. Was today the first time you ever saw those exhibit the videos in still frame photo?
No.
So you've seen that before today?
Yes.
You recall how many times?
Once a piece.
Do you recall who you were shown them by?
The
Same.
table. Yeah.
Same attorney?
Yes.
Let the record also reflect that, again, he's made a right hand gesture to the prosecution table and identified as Attorney Whichow again.
No objection.
And do you recall around what date that was? Was it recently? Was it some time ago?
It was recently.
And what would you define as recently? A few weeks, a few days, a month?
A few weeks.
And exhibit, I want to say it was 133, or maybe 132. You recall seeing the vehicle that you saw that day going through the parade route. Would that be fair to say?
Could I see the exhibit? I'm not sure which one specifically you're referring to.
Let's try exhibit 132. That may be.
For the witness only or for everyone?
For everyone. I don't have it on my screen.
It takes a moment.
Okay.
Should have it now. Let me know when you have it in the jury.
I have it now.
No, I need the jurors to let me know when they get it.
You made reference when shown this exhibit. You made reference to be in position around like right in that area. Would that be fair to say?
Yes.
If you could play the video from I don't know, maybe starting at around 5 seconds.
Give me a second, I need to clear the annotation. You don't want it captured in any way, do you?
Oh, no. Okay. Can you play it? Did you see the vehicle pass the position where you were standing in that exhibit?
Yes.
You made reference to the driver of the vehicle hanging out of the driver's side window, and I think your words were you were concerned that the driver may fall out of the vehicle. Do you recall saying that?
Yes.
Is it fair to say from that exhibit video that the driver of that vehicle is not hanging out of the window?
In that portion of the video, he is not hanging out the window.
So what portion? Let me back up. In any of the exhibits that you were shown, does any of them depict the driver hanging out of the window on the verge of falling out?
No.
So at what position were you in when you observed what you said as the driver hanging out of the window and you being concerned that possibly they would fall out? And where were you positioned at that time?
On the south side of Main Street, just west of Maple, by a few feet.
Do you know of any reason why the exhibits are not depicting what you say you saw?
That video is probably from several hundred feet to the east of where I am. So
Several hundred feet? How would you estimate that distance?
I know where that video was taken from and where I was standing.
And you know that for sure?
It's an estimate.
So it would be fair to say you don't know for sure.
Objection, argumentative.
Grounds
Sustain.
for the sustain, Your Honor.
Argumentative.
Would it be fair to say that in the exhibit that was just shown, that from the position that you said that you would have been positioned at, would it be fair to say that the vehicle passed that position pretty quickly?
Yes.
So how were you able to get a look at the driver if it passed your position quickly and we can see lots of people standing in that position?
The vehicle at that point in time was a threat to me and my family. All my attention was directly on that vehicle.
And you saying it passed 10 feet in front of you.
Approximately, yes.
Does this exhibit that was just shown depict what you are saying now, that it passed 10 feet in front of you?
Yes.
So can we pull that back up?
You want it played? They have it, yep, they confirmed. Do you want it played from a certain
Well,
spot?
I'll get to that. Just so we're clear for the record and for the jury, your position would be somewhere in here as you testified. Would that be fair to say?
Correct. But
Can we pull that X down?
Hold on, let him finish. You interrupted him.
Okay.
not right. It's not like any of these people here. So when I put an X here, I am essentially, I'm going to call it way down there. Several hundred feet. I'm not any of these people pictured. Does that make sense?
No, it actually doesn't, but I was referring, so I probably had it a little coming this way. So by what you're saying, you would have been approximately in this area. Would that be fair to say?
Yeah.
Object to the annotation. The witness drew twice now where he was, and I think adequately explained it.
Grounds.
I'm going to sustain the objection and direct Mr. Brooks to have the witness put where the area that he was in.
Okay, so you and your family were approximately in the area of where you drew the X. Would that be fair to say?
Yes.
Would it also be fair to say that there are quite a few people in that area?
Yes.
Would it be fair to say that you can see, I guess it would be some type of lights from the vehicle that passed? Would that be fair to say?
Yes.
And you estimate that where you can see those lights and where you would have positioned that is 10 feet.
Can you repeat the question?
Would you say that where you can see those lights at, that you just said that you can see, and the position that you drew yourself to be positioned in, you would estimate that that's 10 feet?
Yes.
I'll object and move to strike. I think this is a misleading question. We're at the beginning of the video. Those taillights are not the vehicle in question.
Where did the taillights come from then?
A different vehicle.
Oh.
So would it be fair to say that
Hold on. There's been an
objection.
There's been an objection. Strike the question. Strike his response. If you want to watch the video again, that would be fine.
Before I play, do you recall there being any other vehicles positioned by where you were standing at with your family?
Hold on. Are you talking about at the time that we're seeing this, or
at the time that we're looking at right now? Do you recall any other vehicles being present, positioned where you were standing with your family?
There was a vehicle to my left, and just to the west of them was some sort of vehicle.
So it would have been a little bit further west.
Yes.
From your recollection, would you say that was the vehicle that you said would have been positioned a little further west?
Sir, do you mean the vehicle in the photo?
Yes, the vehicle that.
Thank you.
The vehicle in the exhibit. I'm sorry,
It's possible.
but you don't know for sure.
No.
Can you play a little bit of it? I'll tell you when to pause. Can we bring the X off? Pause. Would it be fair to say that it looks like the vehicle that's traveling with direction, would that be west?
Which vehicle are you referring to?
The vehicle that just drove through the middle of the screen.
Yes.
Does the vehicle appear to be in the middle of the street? Would that be fair to say?
Yes.
And would you estimate the middle of the street to be 10 feet from where you were positioned at the time?
Be a little further than that.
And with all the people in that general vicinity, would that in any way be hard for you to focus on if you could actually see who was driving the vehicle?
No.
Do you see yourself? Did your position move closer to the vehicle, as we can see that it's in the middle of the street and you just testified to that? Did you move closer to the vehicle or did you move back from the vehicle? What did you do at that point when you noticed that the vehicle was approaching your position?
It happened very quickly. I don't know that I moved in any direction.
So to your recollection, you pretty much stayed where you were at?
Yes, it happened very quickly.
So it would be fair to say that it was, well, let me back up. What will you define as very quick? A few seconds?
Yes.
And in a few seconds, you were able to see the driver of the vehicle hanging out of the window and almost falling and doing all that in just a few seconds?
Yes.
And you also made mention to the driver of the vehicle looking behind them. Do you recall saying that?
Yes.
So, in your recollection, you witnessed the driver hanging out of the driver's side window, being concerned that they would possibly fall out of the vehicle, and looking back and continuing to drive in a straight line, all in a few seconds.
Can you repeat that question?
You were able to see, because you testified that everything happened very quickly, and then you defined that as being a few seconds. Would that be fair to say that that's what you just testified to?
Yes.
So what I'm asking is, in those few seconds, you were able to see, from your recollection, you were able to see the driver of the vehicle hanging out of the vehicle, you being concerned that the driver would possibly fall from the vehicle, notice that the driver was looking back and continuing to drive in a straight line.
I would not say continue to drive in a straight line. All the rest of that, yes.
You witnessed all that in a few seconds?
Yes.
Are we done with the video?
Oh yeah, we done with the video. Just so we're clear for the record, the exhibit that we just watched, the driver of the said vehicle was not hanging out of the window. Would that be fair to say?
Correct.
You made reference to the make and model of the vehicle. How were you able to determine that in just a few seconds?
I know different makes and models of vehicles, so I'm positive on the make and model.
So would you know the make and model of pretty much any vehicle that would pass you on a street?
Most,
but not all.
Some might be a little difficult.
You were able to determine that in a few seconds?
Yes.
You made mention to some mechanical problems. You believe that there may have been some mechanical problems. How were you able to come to that determination?
The RPMs were revving much higher than normal.
Can you explain to the jury what do you mean by that, the RPMs? How that has any bearing on the engine?
This is very different than a normal vehicle driving down the road.
And so upon hearing that, from your recollection, you thought because of that sound that there had to be some mechanical problems going on with the engine.
I thought that there could be.
But it was your first initial thought, correct?
Correct.
And you were able to hear that sound and come to a conclusion that possibly there were mechanical issues all in a few seconds.
A lot runs through your mind at that point in time, yes.
And would it be fair to say, because depicting from the exhibit, that there were quite a few people in that general area, you were able to hear this engine over all the noise and chaos that was going on at that time?
Yes, absolutely.
And you can hear the engine clear over all those people?
Yes.
Would it be fair to say that there were hundreds, even thousands of people present at the parade that day?
Hundreds for sure.
In your general area, hundreds?
Yes.
Would it be fair to say that hundreds of people can get pretty loud?
Yes.
You stated that, I can't remember what side of the road you said it would be, but you made reference to an open alleyway. Do you recall saying that?
No.
Do you recall if you were positioned by any cross streets?
Yes, there was an intersection just to my right.
Do you recall if it was barricaded at the time?
I believe it was.
Do you recall if any law enforcement was stationed at that barricade?
I don't recall.
So it would be fair to say you don't recall if there could have been an exit out of the parade route at that time?
I don't recall.
In any of the exhibits that you were shown, and not the still frames, but the videos, 132, 133, and I think it was 134. Did you see yourself in any of those videos?
I did not.
Did you see your family members in any one of those videos?
I did not.
Back up really quick to the mechanical issue again. You made mention to sounding like the engine was sputtering. Do you recall that?
Yes.
Can you define to the jury what you mean by sputtering?
I heard noises that sounded like almost like a popping. It may have been impacts of the vehicle hitting things. I don't know.
It would be fair to say that based on what you testified to earlier about the RPMs and you knowing that would have something to do with the engine being louder, high pitched, I think it was what you said. It would be fair. Do you think it would be fair to say that if that is pursuant to the actual engine, how could that have anything to do with something being struck if that's engine that's inside of the vehicle?
Can you repeat the question? I'm not sure what the specific question was.
The mechanical issues that you are describing was pretty much geared towards engine trouble. Would that be fair to say? A sputtering engine,
It was very high pitched, so it could be a mechanical thing, or it could be the engine or the transmission being like in the wrong gear.
From your line of work, obviously you've been doing it for a very long time. Engine or transmission, possibly the vehicle being in the wrong gear, as you just said, could that at any time cause someone who's driving the vehicle to lose control of the vehicle?
I guess it could.
Do you know for sure, or is that just a guess?
That's just a guess.
So you don't know for sure if that would cause, if the driver may have been stuck in the wrong gear, you're not sure if that would have caused them maybe to lose control of the vehicle at that point in time?
I don't know.
From let me back up. From your recollection, do you recall there being any tints to the vehicle? Like tinted windows or anything?
I don't recall.
Can we pull up Exhibit 9? How do you show it to everybody? Do you say publish?
It's on.
I'm sorry.
Published, yes. It is. Jury will let me know when it's in the jury box, please.
Would it be fair to say from this still shot depiction that there are in fact tinted windows of the vehicle that you identified?
That the windows in the back are tinted?
So you don't see any tinted windows on the side too?
Yes. When I mean back, I mean driver's door back.
I apologize. I didn't know what you meant by that.
Okay.
Back driver's side window and the immediate window after that as well. Would it be fair to say that from this picture there are two tinted windows that you can visibly see? Would that be fair to say?
Yes.
You can take that down. In that Exhibit 9 steel frame, it would be also fair to say that the driver is not hanging out of the window at that point?
That is fair to say.
To your recollection, do you know who may have took any of those videos? Not the steel frames, but the videos that were shown?
No.
Were you injured in any way during the incident?
No.
Any of your family?
No.
Do you know if anyone filed a claim in this incident?
I don't understand the question.
Filed a claim like seeking to be an injured party?
Objection.
Grounds.
Sustained.
Working in law enforcement, have you at any point seen the complaint in this matter?
Objection.
Grounds.
Relevance.
Grounds.
Overruled.
A complaint regarding this case?
Yes.
No.
Do you know if there's a plaintiff in this case?
Objection.
Grounds.
Relevance.
Grounds.
Sustained.
Do you even know if there's a plaintiff in this matter?
Same objection.
Grounds.
Sustained.
Being in law enforcement for as long as you have, are you aware that there has to be an injured party to bring a claim?
Objection.
Grounds.
Argumentative.
Sustained. Also misstates the law.
Were you ever made aware at any time that the state of Wisconsin can be a plaintiff in a matter?
Objection.
Grounds.
Relevance.
Sustained.
And from your recollection, do you recall seeing any of the occupants in the vehicle at the time?
I don't remember seeing anyone in the vehicle other than the driver.
Were you able to get a look inside of the vehicle?
I can only see the driver.
So it would be fair to say that you're not sure.
That would be fair.
No further questions.
Any redirect?
Yes, please. If we could bring 132 back up, I do have some separate questions. You testified that you're getting paid today
Correct.
by the city of Franklin.
Yes.
State of Wisconsin's not cutting that check.
Objection, hearsay.
Overruled.
Objection, speculative.
Overruled.
Correct.
Do you get paid more money if there's a guilty verdict?
Objection, hearsay.
Overruled.
No.
Direct your attention to Exhibit 132. One last time, I'd like you to draw an X to depict where you and your family were standing, approximately.
Objection, answered numerous times already at this point.
Can we save that as Exhibit 132A and I've moved that into evidence?
Objection, relevancy, and answered numerous times.
Exhibit 132 is received.
Thank you.
Objection.
Overruled.
We've paused it at about 4 seconds. When the vehicle was 10 feet away from you, is this where it was on Main Street?
Objection,
Overruled.
speculative, clearly not 10 feet.
The jury will disregard the comment made by Mr. Brooks. It's not testimony.
I don't consent to being called that name. Objection to that, for the record.
Could you repeat the question?
When the vehicle was 10 feet away from you, is this where the vehicle was at that time?
Objection, hearsay.
Overruled.
Grounds for the overrule, Your Honor.
At this point in the video, it hasn't reached you and your family yet.
That is correct.
Let's go frame by frame, a few more frames, please. And we'll pause there.
Just for the record, it was not paused when you asked it to.
It should be at 4.
So looks like the video is at 4 seconds.
We're going frame by frame at this point. Paused at 5 seconds. Is the vehicle now closer to the approximate location where it was near you and your family?
Objection. Hearsay.
There was a question on cross-examination about your use of the phrase open alleyway. So just to clarify, what, if anything, was between the Catholic group and the south curb of Main Street as the SUV drove through that area?
Objection leading.
Overruled.
I would believe that there was nothing in that space.
And you testified that you saw the SUV veer from left to right. Is that correct?
Objection speculative.
Overruled.
Your initial opinion that there may have been a mechanical problem, that changed at some point, didn't it?
Objection speculative.
Overruled.
Yes.
Why did that opinion change?
Objection leading.
Overruled.
It changed when I saw the driver and his body language.
What was that body language? What did you see?
Objection leading.
Overruled.
Again, excited or almost happy about what was going on, not panicked or scared.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Statement called. Next witness.
Ralph Salyers III. As we were walking south down Maple, I saw an SUV driving behind the houses, and I just assumed it was driving in a alley or a driveway. As I lost visual of the SUV, I heard a crash. The vehicle then emerged a little bit further south from behind one of the residences there and drove down the driveway of that residence toward the street, toward my daughter and I.
And then what happened?
I saw that the front end of the SUV was severely damaged and put two and two together, thought the damage was from the crash I had just heard. So the vehicle came eastbound down the driveway toward the sidewalk. I was standing across the street from it, and then it came to a stop. I saw the driver of the vehicle exit the vehicle. He came around to the front of the vehicle, looked at it, and yelled, "Fuck," and appeared to be panicked, went back and got items out of the driver's side of the vehicle and then ran southbound.
What direction was the front of the vehicle facing when it came to a stop?
It was facing east.
And where were you in relation to the vehicle and the street?
I was directly across the street from it on the sidewalk.
Were there any vehicles between you and the red SUV when you saw the driver get out?
No.
Do you remember approximately how long, in seconds or minutes, you saw the driver as he was getting out and then leaving?
It was just a few seconds.
Do you remember approximately how many feet it would have been between you and the driver?
Objection speculative.
Overruled.
Maybe 50 feet at most.
Could you describe the lighting conditions at that time in terms of sunlight and street lamps, if there were any?
Objection
It was-
relevancy.
Overruled.
Pre-dusk, I would describe it as.
How would you describe the physical appearance of the driver?
Well, he just looked to be kind of in a panic. Thought he was involved in a crash.
What about race?
I would
Objection speculative.
as a light-skinned African-American or possibly Hispanic.
And you've seen photographs of Darrell Brooks in other contexts, is that correct?
Objection. I do not consent to being called that name, nor do I know that individual, and it's speculative.
It's not speculative.
Clearly.
The person you saw get out of the driver's seat of that SUV, do you see that person in the courtroom today?
Yes.
Objection is hearsay. He's speaking as a first eye-hand witness.
Overruled.
Yes, I see him. He's sitting at the defense table wearing a suit with a blue tie and a...
Is your identification in court today colored in any way by seeing pictures of Mr. Brooks in other contexts?
Objection speculative.
Can you describe the difference, if any, between Mr. Brooks' appearance today and his appearance on November 21st?
Objection hearsay and speculative.
It's neither one of those things. Objection is overruled.
Objection is irrelevant.
It is relevant.
Not if he identified me already, so he said.
very short hair right now, and he didn't then.
Like on November 21st.
Objection
Overruled. You may answer.
relevancy.
I'm going to ask that we put up for the witness only exhibit number 65. Do you recognize that video?
Yes.
What does it show?
Shows me walking southbound on the east side sidewalk of Maple.
Is that an accurate depiction of that scene as you saw it that day?
Objection.
Overruled.
Move exhibit 65 into evidence and ask to publish.
Permission to publish is granted.
Objection relevancy.
Overruled.
Play it through one time at 100% speed. Go back to the beginning. Do you see yourself at the beginning of this video?
Yes.
Could you circle yourself for us? Then we'll resume at 4 seconds, please. Pause. Do you see on the video right now the person you recall being the driver of that vehicle?
Yes.
Could you please circle that person for us? I'd like to mark and preserve this annotation as Exhibit 65A, please, and move it into evidence.
Objection hearsay.
The objection is overruled.
The clothing worn by the person you just circled, does that match your memory of what the driver was wearing that day?
Yes.
And let's play from this point. And we'll stop there. What did you do next?
I attempted to call 911 to report a crash.
Did you get through on the first call?
No.
Did you eventually get through?
Fourth time.
Objection, hearsay.
The objection is overruled.
And that's when you reported what you saw?
Yes.
That's all I have. Thank you.
Any questions on cross-exam for this witness?
I do. Can we pull that exhibit back up again and publish?
C5 will be shown. Go ahead.
And publish. Okay, right as this pause right now, it's not playing, it's at 0. Would it be fair to say that to the, I guess that would be my right of the screen, you can see a white looking SUV by the walkway where people would be able to cross the street? Would that be fair to say?
Yes.
And would it be fair to say that the side street that you lined as being Prospect, I think you said it was, where the 2 do not enter signs are, that would be the side street you're referring to? Would that be fair to say?
Yes.
Would it be fair to say that from the position that you're in, approximately here, and the side street being here, so from where you're positioned right here by the X, you can see down this street from the position you're in?
No.
So how were you able to see if a vehicle would be coming from this way from the position you're at?
I didn't see the vehicle driving on Prospect. I saw it driving behind the houses through the yards.
So you were able to see the vehicle behind houses?
Between houses, behind
You said
houses.
behind. You said behind.
Right, through the yards behind the houses.
And you were able to see that from where you were?
Yes.
Can we take those marked lines and stuff down? Can you play it a little bit? I'll tell you when to pause.
You just confirm you want it full speed?
Yeah, I guess that would be regular, whatever is the regular speed. I'm sorry about that. Would it be fair to say from...
Do you want to pause?
No, not yet. Just, you can let it play. I'll say, I think it's 36 seconds, so would it be fair to say from...
Well, hold on. The video's showing, so wait till it's done playing and then ask a question. Or have us pause where you want it paused.
Pause. So it's paused at 18 seconds for the record. Would it be fair to say that in the 18 seconds shown to this point, you're pretty much just walking the dog, moving around, just walking normal? You don't make any sudden moves to the left to look, or you don't stop in your tracks or anything. You're just walking along. Would that be fair to say?
Yes.
And you also made reference to hearing a crash. What point did you hear the crash?
Sometime while the vehicle was driving behind the houses.
Why didn't you immediately stop in your tracks and say you just heard something? Why did you just keep moving as if you heard anything? Nothing.
I just turned my head to see if I could see anything, and I didn't see anything.
And so you just kept moving?
Correct.
So basically it was just like, oh, do, walking the dog.
Yes.
Can you play? Pause it. Would it be fair to say that another roughly 8 seconds to play, from 18 seconds to 26 seconds, still you didn't stop in your tracks, still you didn't turn to look at the other side of the street in any manner? You're continuing doing what you're doing. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
Why so nonchalant?
When the vehicle emerged from the back of the house, I saw that it was damaged, and then in my mind, I knew what I had heard.
With all respect, that wasn't the question. Why so nonchalant at that point?
I didn't think it was anything of great emergency at that point. An intoxicated driver may have just struck another vehicle in the back of that alley, and now he was going to take off and run.
Being in law enforcement, why would you not investigate that if you heard something crash? Why, being an officer of the law, why would you not investigate that if you heard that?
I was with my daughter.
Well, I would think it would be fair to say that you can handle yourself. You're obviously an officer of the law. You're trained to be able to handle yourself. Would it be fair to say that you could have at least investigated the sound that you heard, the sound like a crash, at least?
Objection.
Grounds.
Sustained.
So all these thoughts, maybe it was just a drunk driver and they're gonna run anyway, and all these thoughts, and that never piqued your interest to investigate?
Sometimes being a good witness is the best thing to do.
Now that's fair, but being an officer of the law, you're right there.
Again,
Objection. Not a question. Also asked and answered. Also argumentative.
Sustained. Next question, please.
What if someone may have been hurt at that point? You don't think you would have an obligation to investigate if someone may have been injured at that point?
that's why I called 911.
Can you play the rest of the video? It did a weird little motion thing. That's probably from the camera. I would guess. But in that entire video, is it fair to say that you did not reach for a phone and take out a phone from your pockets or anything in any way? That be fair to say?
I can't tell if I did from the video itself. I know.
So when did you make the call?
At some point after you started running.
Who was you?
The defendant.
So how long after you saw the driver of the vehicle did you make the 911 call?
Within seconds.
Is it fair to say that we don't see that on the video?
The video is very small.
Is it fair to say we don't see you do that on the video?
Yes.
Can we pull the video back up? Can you take it to 27 seconds and pause at 27? Can you, maybe 28. I may be mistaken. Maybe just go one more second. Maybe to 28. Or you know what? No.
keep it paused right there. Would it be fair to say that you noticed the vehicle in this area right there?
Yes.
Can you remove the X? And what do you see right there?
I don't understand.
Do you see anything right there? An individual, anything? Do you see anything right there
It's
inside
hard
the
to tell
circle?
from that picture.
Can you move it? Can we blow it up a little bit or move it closer? Just a little bit?
I don't know that it can be zoomed in. Does that
Can
the
it-
state
can
have
it be
that
zoomed in?
capability?
So we can zoom in as long as the defendant's okay with fencing with any technological foundation issues there. But we can zoom in. We have the ability to do that.
Would you like it zoomed in?
What do you mean by not? Say that again? I'm sorry.
We can zoom in if you want.
Can you zoom in just a little bit? Just a smidge.
That's the extent of our zooming capabilities with this
No,
software.
that's fine. That's fine. Can you see anything there?
It looks like something white. I don't know if that's the driver.
Looks like something white.
Yes, light colored.
White color what?
It's light colored.
Light color, but you did say white. Is that fair to say that you just said white?
I just did say white.
Can you erase the circle? Zoom back out. Take the. It's like a box there in the corner that's kind of throwing the whole exhibit off. Take it back to the regular. You testified earlier that you saw the driver with a gray hoodie, as you referred to it. Do you recall saying that?
Yes.
What I just circled right there, would you, from your recollection, say that that was the driver you saw?
I don't know what that is at this point.
You don't-
It's
you
just
don't
a
know?
paused video. Could be a glare. Could be a person. I don't know it.
Well, let's play it again.
From the 27th.
Stop right there.
Okay.
Yeah,
No.
from the 27 mark. I think it just played maybe a second, half a second or something like that. Did you see that whatever you said you didn't know what it was, could have been a person, could have been something else? Did you see it move from the position that it was before?
Yes.
And you also identified that that was white, right? That's what you said, correct?
I did say that.
And would it be fair to say that you saw the driver in gray? Would that be fair to say?
Yes.
Take the circle off. You also stated that you were about 50 feet from the you added the vehicle in too. You said maybe 50 feet, and then depending on the length of the vehicle, would that be fair to say?
Yes.
And from where you are here to here, because it would be fair to say we can't see a vehicle in the picture at that point. Would that be fair to say we can't see a vehicle that would be facing you because you said it was facing you? We can't see a vehicle. Would that be fair to say?
Yes.
So that would be 50 feet from approximately 50 feet from X to X.
Approximately.
And you were able to see the driver and a description from where you're standing now to where the other X is.
Yes.
And you were able to make out the race of the driver from where you were at.
I guessed.
You
on
guessed.
Raced.
So you're not for certain.
I wasn't for certain at that time.
So what conclusion were you coming to at that point? Just an educated guess, or
Can you explain further?
how
Conclusion for what?
would it be fair to say that your guess could have been inaccurate?
Could have been.
You also stated that you saw news reports and a description of the driver on the news. Would that be fair to say?
Yes.
And you made reference to the driver's hair. Would that be fair to say?
In my testimony, yes.
You brought up the hair is what I'm saying. You said long hair. That'd be fair to say?
Yes.
And you will be able to see hair if you describe the driver wearing a hoodie?
Yes.
You would be able to see hair and tell the length of the hair.
If it's hanging out of the hoodie, yes.
Well, you didn't say, all fairness, you didn't say it was hanging out of the hoodie. You just referred to the hair.
Yes.
Objection, that's not a question, and it's argumentative.
Is it
Hold on, there's been an objection. I'll overrule the objection.
Is it any possible way you could have gotten a description from the news reports instead of what you actually recall?
No.
And how did you determine that?
In my statement, I described what I saw that day, not what I saw in the news.
And you also described two different colors of dress. One you said gray and one you said white. Would that be fair to say?
I said that the item in the video appeared to be white.
Did you not say that the item moved? As you say item, did you not say the item moved from where it was at?
Yes.
Would it be fair to say that there can be no movement to an item if it wasn't a person?
Yes.
A person that you described wearing white.
On the video screen, it appeared white. It appeared light colored or white.
Would it be fair to say that you said white? That was your first?
Yes.
At any time in that video, could you see hair?
In the video?
In the video.
You can't see very much in the video.
After making the 911 call, did you return back to the scene where you noticed the vehicle?
Yes.
And did you investigate at that point?
Yes.
So what changed from the point that you heard a crash, as you say, and then returning back to where you saw the vehicle? What changed between those times?
As I was talking to the 911 dispatcher, I wanted to give them better details about the vehicle, so I walked back over to give
So at
them
the
that.
time at the time that you initially made the 911 call, there was still details about what you saw that you were unsure of. Would that be fair to say?
I believe they asked me what the license plate was.
So you couldn't see the license plates of the vehicle from where you were at.
There was no license plate on the front of the vehicle.
So you came back to investigate if there was a license plates that you can identify.
Yes.
Did you investigate what you may have heard the vehicle strike?
No.
Any reason why not?
By that time, a large crowd had gathered, and the police were responding rather quickly.
So you didn't take the opportunity to see if anyone, from saying that you heard a loud crash, you didn't take the opportunity to investigate if anyone may have been hurt from that loud crash?
I didn't know.
Any reason why not?
No reason.
Any other details about the driver that you can recall as far as further clothing?
No, I thought at some point I saw a Packers logo on his clothing or something to that effect.
Did you put that in your report?
Yes.
At any time, have you read or saw a complaint in this matter?
No.
Any other officers that came to the scene? Because you made reference to officers was responding by the time you came back to give more details to the dispatcher. More officers were arriving. Do you recall if any one of those officers investigated the loud crash you heard?
I'm unaware.
But it would be fair to say that they gave reports from what they observed when coming to the scene. Would that be fair to say?
Yes.
Do you recall any of them asking you of a description of what you saw?
I didn't speak to any officers on scene that day.
Any reason why not?
Just left.
Seeing as how that you made the initial 911 call, I'm sure the officers were probably responding by that time anyway, but seeing as how you made the 911 call, you didn't collaborate with the other officers to try to, piece together what you may have saw?
I'll object to the characterization that was the first 911 call.
I didn't say first. I said he made the initial 911 call.
Initial means first.
Besides, let me back up. After seeing the description on the news, did you say to yourself, that's the driver that I saw?
I recognize the driver as the person I saw on TV or social media.
Social media or the news?
I don't recall. Probably both.
Both. Did you report that?
That's what I told them. Yes.
And did you report that description before or after you saw it on the news or social media, or both?
I gave a statement the very next morning.
So it would be fair to say by that next morning you had already seen reports on the news or social media?
Yeah.
Or
yes.
both?
Yes.
And your report was the next morning, so could it have been fair to say that that's where you got the description?
No.
Did you learn any additional information that you don't recall having via social media or the news after you had already made your report?
I don't understand the question.
Did you learn any additional information after you had already given your report?
Learn information about what?
About the description of the driver, what had happened at the parade, anything?
Well, originally I had no idea what had happened at the parade. I thought it was just I witnessed a hit and run crash. I had no clue what had happened at the parade.
So you just said now you witnessed a hit and run crash, but you also said that you didn't investigate crash that you heard.
Correct.
So how would you characterize it as a hit and run crash if you never investigate what you heard?
Because I heard a crash and then the driver ran.
Well, you also stated, to be fair, that you didn't investigate the crash. So how was it any way to know what you were witnessing if you didn't investigate?
Because I heard a crash and I saw the driver run. So in my mind, I assumed that was a hit and run crash.
So it was an assumption, you didn't know?
Yes, I heard a crash. I didn't see the crash.
Correct. So would it be fair to say that from the assumption that there was a hit and run crash, as you say, the only way to know for sure where the crash came from would be to investigate it? Would that be fair to say?
Yes.
And you stated for the record that you did not do that, correct?
Yes.
So why would you report it as a hit and run crash if you were not sure what it was?
That's what I thought it was.
Did you talk to any of the people that lived in those houses to see if they had heard the same thing you heard? Did they report to you that they heard any crash?
No.
Did they report to you that they saw a driver?
No.
So as far as you can recall, you were the only one that heard the crash?
As far as I know, yes.
No further questions.
Any redirect?
Please, thank you. You testified that you didn't investigate the sound of this crash, correct?
Yes.
Were you off duty that day?
Yes.
When you're off duty, do you carry a police radio with you?
Objection. That is irrelevant. It's an officer of the law.
Overruled.
No.
So if you did get into a pickle, you wouldn't be able to call for backup, would you?
Objection. That's speculative. Still has a cell phone.
It's not speculative.
Correct.
Your daughter, the one that we saw in Exhibit 65, is she a sworn law enforcement officer?
Objection. Irrelevant.
Overruled.
No.
At the time you heard the crash but didn't investigate it, did you know that the vehicle that you saw had been involved in hitting dozens of people on Main Street minutes earlier?
Objection. Asked during cross. Answered.
Overruled.
I had no idea.
And just to clarify again, who was the driver?
The defendant.
Darrell Brooks?
Darrell Brooks.
Objection. I don't consent to being called that name. And
Mr. Brooks, I'm sorry.
I don't consent to being called that name.
So noted.
Did you see anybody else get out of the vehicle?
No.
When you went back to check the vehicle, was there anybody inside?
No.
On this issue of the white clothing, can we please show for everybody exhibit number 120?
Go ahead.
You see exhibit number 120?
Yes.
You see the person who appears to be behind the driver's wheel.
Objection. What is the relevancy?
Overruled.
Yes.
How would you describe the color of the shirt that person's wearing?
Light gray or white?
That's all I have for this witness.
I am going to excuse the jurors.
Thank you, everyone. Please be seated. And the statement calls next witness.
State calls Officer Bryce Skolton.
Go ahead, your witness.
What line of work are you in?
I'm a police officer for the city of Waukesha.
Do you recall what you were wearing that day?
Objection. Relevant.
Overruled.
At some point, did you hear something on the radio that concerned you?
Yes. I heard, so the parade was on channel 3, so that's what I was assigned to. These radios also have the ability to scan other channels, so I was scanning channel 1, which is what the road squads were working on. At that time, I heard a call for service on channel 1 for the road squads to be dispatched to, and it was some sort of domestic disturbance or fight in Frame Park. After that, approximately a minute or so later, I started hearing radio traffic on both channel 3 and channel 1. Reserve officer or a community service officer on channel 3 requested an ambulance somewhere on the eastern portion of the parade route. They were asking for an ambulance because someone had been hit. I believed that it was something stemming from the domestic or the fight, because during that fight someone had fled on scene. So I believed that the hit was something to do with the physical altercation. Moments later, this was all sort of spun out of control very quickly. Radio traffic became more and more difficult, and more people started calling for ambulances. I knew something was happening, but I didn't know exactly what. I have a collar mic. My microphone was approximately right about here on my chest. I don't have an earpiece. That's just what I use. But after a few minutes, I realized something was happening. I began walking away from my post, and I walked past my barricade sort of into the parade route. And at that point, that is when I started hearing more screams. And this time it wasn't just screams on my radio, it was screams like in my vicinity that I could hear. And at that moment, I saw a red blur come past the Wisconsin House westbound and make a very hard braking maneuver to go
there, and let's put
southbound.
Exhibit 1 back up, please.
As you're putting Exhibit 1 back up, I just want to make a record of the hand gesture he made previously when, I believe it was his radio microphone, he used his right hand, I would say about heart height, to indicate his, I believe he called it a lapel mic or something to do with his radio and where he would hear from. Go ahead.
Objection. I don't think he said lapel. I think he referred to the microphone just being here and not using the earpiece. That's just.
Your objection is noted.
What happened as the red blur rounded the corner?
I realized what was happening at that point. I recognized it was a red SUV and there was extreme vehicle damage to it on the front. The hood was smashed up towards the windshield, the front portion, the front bumpers, the fenders, everything was extreme vehicle damage. At that point, between all the screaming I heard, everyone calling for ambulances and help, and then realizing people hit, I knew it was now people hit by a vehicle, and I knew that those initial requests were so far eastbound on the parade, and now I'm at towards the end of the parade, or at least the end of the portion of Main Street. I knew that this vehicle had likely, and based on the speed of the vehicle, that the vehicle had ran through the entire parade route and likely severely injured people or killed people, and at that point I thought it was a terror attack at the parade. As the vehicle navigated its turn to go southbound, it accelerated towards me. That is when I knew I had to use deadly force to stop the threat, and as the vehicle was approaching me, I remembered making the decision that the easiest shot likely would have been through the windshield. However, I remembered the entire backdrop were just surrounded with kids and people. So I waited for the vehicle to pass me and tried to direct my rounds as most southern as I could because there were less people in that direction. At this point, I had walked northbound slightly, so I was, I believe, just out of the intersection at West in Wisconsin. So I was on, I believe my shots, I was technically on Main Street at the time when I began shooting.
Using cardinal directions, can you describe for us which side of you the SUV passed?
Objection. What is cardinal? What does that
Overruled.
The vehicle passed to the east of me. After the vehicle passed me on my right, I began firing at the driver of the vehicle, and as that happened, he ran over the barricades and ultimately left the parade route and continued southbound on Northwest Avenue.
West Avenue is how many blocks from Maple Avenue?
One block.
Objection. Relevance.
Overruled.
I'd like to show for the witness only, please, exhibit number 57. We've played 7 seconds for you. Do you recognize this video? What does it show?
This is the vehicle that was driven by Darrell Brooks during the Christmas parade that drove past me and I shot at.
Objection. I don't consent to or being called that name, or nor do I identify it. I'm hearing third party. So
Your
I want that
objection
stated
is
for the
noted.
record.
It's overruled. The witness has previously identified you.
I want
Go
that
ahead.
stated for the record.
Do you see yourself at the 10-second mark?
Yes, I do.
Can you circle yourself for us? You're the only person at this 10-second mark wearing a yellow vest.
Correct.
Okay, we can clear that, please. Can we slow this down with no audio? Slow it down to about 50%, please, and play from there. I'd like to show for the witness only, please, exhibit number 170. Do you recognize this photograph?
Yes, I do.
What does it show?
This shows the vehicle damage that I observed when I first saw the vehicle as it was coming towards me. This is the vehicle that was, again, driven the Christmas parade by Darrell Brooks.
Objection. I don't consent to being called that name. Again, for the record, I'm hearing third party.
The
For
objection
record.
is on the record.
Does this appear to be a screenshot from the video we just watched, exhibit 57?
It does appear so.
And again, this is then an accurate depiction of how the vehicle looked that day?
That is correct.
I move exhibit 170 into evidence and ask to publish.
Objection. Relevancy.
Overruled.
Now I'd like to show for the witness only exhibit number 169, please. Do you recognize this photograph?
Yes, I do.
What is it?
This is that same vehicle. It appears to be just moments after that first picture we just were shown.
Does this appear to be a screenshot from the video in exhibit 57?
Yes, it does.
Is this an accurate depiction of how the vehicle and the driver looked to you that day?
Yes.
Move exhibit 169 into evidence and ask to publish.
Exhibit
Objection.
169 is received.
Objection.
Noted. Overruled.
Exhibit 58, please. What does it show?
Pretty much what the last video showed.
Move exhibit 58 into evidence and ask to publish, please.
Objection.
Exhibit 58 is received or will disregard the comments that are on the right side of the exhibit.
This is a 15-second clip. We'll play it once at regular speed with audio, please. What we saw in that video, again, that's inaccurate. Does that match up with how you recall the incident?
That is correct.
That's all I have, Your Honor. Thank you.
Any questions for this witness?
You stated initially that you had heard some radio calls about a possible altercation at Frame Park.
That is correct.
Do you recall what the initial report of that was?
It was either a domestic or some sort of physical altercation. There was a male armed with a knife, and that he was fleeing from the area.
So it was reported it was a possible knife involved and there was a male running from the scene.
That is correct.
Were you ever given any further information about the male with the knife that was running from the scene?
No.
Any information that the male with a knife running from the scene was in a vehicle at any time?
No.
Do you know if any investigation was done looking into that supposed fight at Park?
Yes.
And what did you learn?
I did not learn anything of it. I just know that squads were responding there to investigate it.
Do you recall if there was ever a knife recovered or a suspect recovered in that supposed incident?
Do you mean like how much later do I know? Like what I know now?
At any
any time, do you know if there was a suspect, I guess I would say, apprehended or anything that was found with a knife, to your knowledge?
To my knowledge, I do not know if the suspect from that incident, which was you, was located with a knife.
You, what do you mean?
You, Darrell Brooks. I know you were the suspect in that incident, and I know you were taken into custody approximately 30 to 40 minutes later.
I'll let the record reflect that I do not identify by that name, nor do I know any individual by that name. I'm here in third party.
Records noted, although the jury will disregard the comments, they are not evidence in this case. Next question, please.
At the time, you said, did you respond to that incident at the park?
No.
So how can you know who was involved with it if you didn't respond yourself?
Because you stated at any time this investigation took a long time to complete, and from this investigation we determined that you were the suspect in that investigation.
You determined that?
I did not, no.
Okay. So basically, you're just going off what you were told, because you just stated that you didn't make any determination, nor did you investigate it. Would that be fair to say?
That's correct.
You also gave, and when you were asked the question of were there any other officers along the route, or I don't know if that was referring to side exits or anything of that nature, but I recall you stating that you gave an estimate, stating that you weren't sure where other officers were stationed, but you gave an approximate estimate. Would that be fair to say?
That is correct.
And would that have been officers stationed at different cross streets?
That is correct.
Do you know if those cross streets were barricaded?
I know that there were barricades across numerous intersections.
So pretty much every side street is barricaded.
The vast majority of streets are barricaded to stop traffic for the parade route.
Can you pull up Exhibit 1 and publish? Can you see, well, I know you can. Can you see the red lines on this map that we're looking at?
Yes.
And what do those red lines constitute?
Barricades.
So would it be fair to say that there's a red line at every cross street that we can see on this map? That would be
Do you mean along the parade route or the
along the parade route, starting at East Main Street. There's a red mark. Oh, I didn't mean to put that arrow. Can we clear that? I was trying to put like a little dot. Starting there's a red line there. There's two at Buckley.
Well, hold on. You're testifying now. You gotta ask a question. So the jury will disregard that statement.
Are there two at Buckley?
Yes.
Is there one at Martin Street?
Yes.
Is there one at is there two at Barstow Street?
Yes.
One at Gaspar?
Yes.
One at North Grand and one at West Broadway?
There's two at West Broadway.
Well, it's one is on the closer to where it says North Grand, and one is on the other side of the star right there. This is what I'm referring to.
Okay. Yes, there are two right
Clear
there.
that? So there's two there. There's two at Clinton Street. Can you see those two?
Yes.
There's one at Maple Avenue. Can you see that one?
Yes.
And there's one at right here at West Avenue. Can you see that?
Correct. Yes.
So it would be fair to say that there's pretty much barriers at every single street from White Rock and East Main to West Main and Northwest Avenue?
Yes.
Barricades at all those streets?
Yes.
Do you know if there were officers stationed at those barricades?
Yes. This map shows, it appears, where everyone was for their assignments that day.
So would it be fair to say if someone wanted to exit the parade route, they would essentially be blocked in by the officers and barricades?
No.
There are barricades at these streets we can see. Would that be fair to say?
No.
So it's not fair to say that there's barricades at these streets?
It's fair to say that there's barricades at the streets.
So essentially, if someone was leaving the parade route, can they just go right through the barricades?
Based on the previous videos that we just were shown.
Not based on the previous video. If someone was leaving the parade route, can they just go down these streets that are barricaded? Can they just drive right out of there?
Yes, the video showed that.
How when it's barricaded?
As the video we were shown earlier, the vehicle went right through the barricade.
Hold on, you asked the question. You have to let him answer that. He's giving you the reason. You asked him how. He's explaining it.
There's plenty of ways to get off the parade route. You can stop after being given lawful orders by officers, and they could have directed you off the parade route in a safe manner. You could have stopped the vehicle at any point, or you could have driven through plastic barricades like you did at Northwest Avenue, where I was located. So yes, you can drive through the plastic barricades.
You refer to as who?
Darrell Brooks, you, person that's talking.
To you? And how did you come to the conclusion of that name, as you stated that you couldn't see past this building here, which you said is the Wisconsin House? Would that be fair to say?
You need to rephrase that, sir.
You state clear this right there.
Please. Is that a please?
Can you clear this circle and arrow right here? That's you stated that from where you were positioned that you couldn't see around that building. Did you say that?
Yes, I did.
So it would be fair to say you also couldn't see what was happening along the parade route on Main Street. That'd be fair to say.
That is correct.
So it would be also fair to say that everything that you knew up until that point came over the radio and you didn't have first-hand knowledge.
That is correct.
You also stated that after a few minutes of hearing these, radio reports, you said after a few minutes you noticed something was going on. Do you recall from the reports how long this vehicle traveled along the parade route? An estimate of the time that it traveled down the parade route?
2 minutes, maybe.
Would you say that it's fair to say that that's relatively a short amount of time?
I would agree with that.
So what do you mean by after a few minutes you noticed something was going on?
Because after a few minutes, what I meant by that was the initial call for service at the boat launch, from when squads were responding to there to the time that I had shots fired. That is what I mean by a few minutes.
I don't know police protocol, so just asking.
Mr. Brooks, please ask your next question.
I'm getting to it.
No, right, but I have to advise the jury to disregard the comment because it's not testimony.
And you stated that. Well, let's go to.
Yeah, go ahead. Do you need that? We're gonna turn it off.
Yeah, you can take that down. Sorry about that. I believe it's Exhibit 57. Pull up Exhibit 57. Can we bring it to about 16 or 17 seconds? Can you bring it back a little bit? One more second if you could. There, can you pause it there? Would it be fair to say that those are barricades that are laying in the street there?
Correct.
Any idea why they were not standing up?
Yes, I do.
What would be the reason?
It was very windy that day, so when they were standing up how they normally are, they kept on blowing across the street.
They would be able to block traffic by laying down?
Yes, they serve the same purpose.
But they would be able to block traffic by laying down?
I guess I don't understand what your question is here.
Would it be much more easier to see them if they were facing upright than laying down?
I think the height difference between them laying down and being upright is probably quite minuscule.
And you come to that conclusion how?
Deploying barricades on numerous events and working several parades in my work history.
So you would estimate that a barricade facing upright and a barricade laying down would be the same height?
Approximately.
Can you bring it back to 10 seconds? From what we're looking at right now, it's a little hard to see. You can see the vehicle, you can see where you identified you were, but it's a little bit hard to see everything. Would that be fair to say? Because of the person with the black coat and the gray hoodie and Nike black pants is directly in the middle of the screen? That's fair to say it's a little hard to see from this.
Where it is paused now, yes.
Yes, that's what I meant, where it's paused now.
Yes.
It looks like this would be you right here. Would that be fair to say?
That is correct.
It looks like you're firing your weapon right there. Would that be fair to say?
I do not know if I have pulled the trigger yet or not. I don't believe I have.
You were ready to fire at that point.
That's correct.
Do you recall what you were aiming for?
Yes, I do.
Can you state for the record and for the jury?
You, Darrell Brooks.
Again, you make reference to the you and the name. How did you come to that? Seeing as how you just testified to that you couldn't see anything before what you call the Wisconsin house. Would that be fair to say that you testified to that?
That's correct.
You also stated that you learned additional information later on. Would that be fair to say?
That's correct.
So how could you determine at this time right now where we're looking at that you knew the suspect's name and the driver? Because you keep referring to you and then you saying the name. How did you have that information at this point that's paused right here that we're looking at?
I didn't say at that time I knew your name.
You referred to the name, did you not?
That's correct.
So how were you able to obtain the information about a name?
I did not know your name at the time I shot at you.
Who's the you were referring to?
Darrell Brooks.
Again, you said a name that you haven't answered how you came to that information. Were you told this?
Yes.
By whom?
Ultimately, I just know that you were arrested within 30 or 40 minutes and you were identified as Darrell Brooks.
So you either had to hear that name from either a report that you heard or someone told you. How did you come to the conclusion of the name?
I'm assuming someone at the police department told me your name.
And you don't recall who that was?
No.
Even though you can cite the name so clearly and identify it and keep stressing it and you don't recall how you learned the information of the name?
That is correct.
So is it fair to say that you're just using the name based off what you're told and not what you were aware of?
What are you asking me?
Is it fair to say that you're identifying this name based off of what you told and not what you knew?
I'm saying the name based on the fact that you were arrested for this incident. You were identified during this incident, and because of that investigation, that is how we know your name.
Would it be fair to say say, and obviously you said you've been in law enforcement for 7.5 years, correct?
Correct.
I'm sure you've done a lot of investigations in that 7.5 years. Is that fair to say?
Correct.
So you do understand that during a police investigation, any suspect is innocent until proven guilty. Would that be fair to say?
That's correct.
And so with that knowledge, why are you so adamant about the name of the suspect that you just testified to not being aware of at the time? That you testified to, in fact, being told?
Sorry, I'm confused by your question. Can you say it again?
I think it was clear, but I'll say it again.
Thank you.
Well, I'll say it this way. You testified to not being aware of the suspect's name at the time.
Correct.
You also testified to being told of the name, correct?
Correct. I don't know how I came about your name. I would assume it was through the investigation.
And were you, in fact, part of that investigation?
No, I was not.
So it would be fair to say that by you using a name, you would not be sure. How can you be sure?
I'll object.
Grounds.
Argumentative.
It's been asked, it's been answered, it's argumentative, the objection is sustained.
When asked about what you were aiming at when you fired, you didn't give a definitive answer. You were aiming for the driver?
I felt like I gave a pretty definitive answer. My answer was you,
You
Darrell
were aiming
Brooks.
for the driver.
Yes, pretty definitive. I identified the person I
So
was shooting at.
what part of the driver's body could you see when the vehicle passed you?
When the vehicle was approaching me, I could see the silhouette of his face and upper portion of his body.
Can you describe what you mean by silhouette?
The upper portion of a person's body, I would say from maybe chest, shoulders, and head and face.
You said silhouette though. What is a silhouette?
The outer portions of what would be like your shoulder down of it.
That would be the upper half, not the silhouette. What do you mean by silhouette?
The objection is sustained.
Would it be fair to say that that would be equivalent to a profile?
What do you mean by a profile?
A profile would be sort of like a side angle view. Would it be fair to say that a silhouette would be more of an outline that would be kind of similar to a profile?
I don't know exactly what you're asking here, but I can tell you when the vehicle was driving towards me, I could see your face.
And so you aim towards what you can see?
Correct.
So that would be the upper part, as you say, you said the shoulder. You made I think it was your left hand pointing to your right shoulder, shoulder and up silhouette, as you say?
That is what I could see when you were driving at me. You asked me what I could see of you, and that is what I could see of you in the vehicle when you were approaching me.
The question now, though, is that what you aim for?
I was aiming at you.
At what you can see?
I was aiming at you.
Shoulder, as you pointed to, and up, correct? Would that be fair to say?
Yes.
Firing a weapon of your caliber, would any of those shots be kill shots?
Yes.
Would it be fair to say that firing a kill shot at anyone would terrify him?
I'm sure being shot at is terrifying.
So it'd be fair to say you were shooting to kill?
No.
So would it be fair to say that, judging based on what you see, that you testified to a silhouette from about here that you pointed to, from the shoulder, using your left hand, you pointed at your right shoulder from here up, and you just acknowledged that any one of those 3 shots could have been kill shots. Would it be fair to say that you were aiming to kill? Shooting to kill, rather. Not aiming to kill, but shooting to kill.
No.
So, in your estimate, what do you think you would have hit if you just testified to saying that you aimed at the driver? What were you estimating to hit?
Well, my intention was to shoot you.
Keep referring to the you again. Well, that's not a question. So, by your estimation, acknowledging that those were kill shots, if you connected with any of those shots, is it possible the driver could have been killed?
Yes.
And would it be fair to say that that's deadly force?
Yes.
Do you think it would have been possible to aim at the tire of the vehicle?
No.
Why not? Would shooting the tire of the vehicle not stop the vehicle?
No, it would not have.
So a blown tire to your estimation, a blown tire would not stop a vehicle from moving?
No, it will not.
So it'll just keep on. It won't even slow down?
That is correct. I'm trained to stop the threat. You were the threat. The vehicle was not. The vehicle was the weapon in which you used. So that is why I shot at you.
There's the you again. Pretty clever. Could you have, well, you testify that you're trying to stop the threat. And so would it be fair to say that training constitutes shooting kill shots?
Well, we are trained in deadly force.
Have you ever used deadly force before that incident?
Objection.
Grounds.
Sustained.
You said you're trained to use deadly force. So would it be fair to say that anytime you shoot your weapon, it would be deadly force?
When it is directed at a person, yes.
Were you injured in any way during the incident?
No, I was not.
And at the time, being where you were positioned at, you've already testified that you could not see what was going on during the parade route from your position. So why did you feel the need at the time not knowing the full extent of what was happening to use deadly force?
Because as I previously stated, based on the fact that the radio traffic for people screaming for ambulances, and as different officers were getting on the radio, and it was progressively moving further and further westbound towards me on the parade route, and then officers saying someone was hit, which I initially thought was a physical altercation, someone being hit, but it was a vehicle versus person hit. Based on that, the vehicle speed at which, yes, I could not see it down Main Street. I only had a couple seconds at most until the vehicle from where I saw it was to my location. So based on the amount of vehicle damage, I knew the vehicle had been striking pedestrians in the roadway, and because of that, that's a deadly force incident. So that is why I deployed deadly force.
So you said you knew what the vehicle had. You knew. You said it multiple times. You knew.
Yes.
How could you know if you could not see around the position that you were positioned in? How do you know that?
Because based on the speed of a vehicle on a closed roadway during a parade, and people running out of the way so they did not get run over right in front of me, between all of those things, I knew what had just happened, and that is why I had to take action.
And you knew based on the radio report?
I would say everything that I had just previously described, all of that encompassing, yes, that led up to my decision making into, yes, now I knew what had happened. I did not know previous to that what was going on. I did not know there was a vehicle on the roadway until I saw it, and it all made sense when I put everything together.
When you saw it, by the time you saw it, as you said, it was a couple of seconds. So at that point, did you observe the vehicle strike anyone from the time that you saw it?
No, I did not. I was focused on the vehicle.
You weren't paying attention to any other people?
That was not my primary focus.
But you do recall that no one was struck from the time you saw the vehicle?
Yes, after looking back, after videos later on throughout the investigation.
No. From what you saw, from which you observed with your own eyes?
No, I can't recall ever seeing someone hit right in front of me.
Does the exhibit videos that you saw here today, does anyone get struck in those videos that you saw today?
No, not that I saw today.
And you still made the decision to shoot to kill?
That's correct. Actually, correction, I shot to stop the threat. If ultimately you would have been killed from that, that is a possible outcome.
But you did testify that they were kill shots, did you not?
Sustained.
Do you recall what your shots hit, if anything?
Yes. Later on, throughout the investigation, when I gave
at the time, not later on, at the time where you fired the shots.
Mr. Brooks, you asked a question. He was attempting to answer it, so you have to let.
I was trying to give him clarification on what I mean.
But you have to let him answer the question that you asked, and if you feel the need for follow-up, then you can do that, or ask a very specific question.
3 days after the incident, that is when I gave my voluntary statement. I asked them if they could share any information with me, and during that conversation, I was shown a picture of the vehicle and where my round struck the vehicle.
You stated you asked them for any additional information that they could give you. Correct. So it would be fair to say at that time you still didn't have a lot of information. Would it be fair to say that?
That is correct. I didn't know where my rounds had struck previous to that.
Did you ask them in the statement that you just testified to, saying you asked them if they could provide you with any more information? Did you at any time specifically ask about the shots that you fired when you requested if they could give you any more information?
I do not remember the specifics of what questions I asked.
So would it be fair to say at that point that there's a possibility that you did not know the name of the suspect, nor did you know if you had shot the suspect at that time?
At that time, I knew I had not shot the suspect because the night of the incident, when he was taken into custody, it was relayed to me that he was uninjured and he had not been struck by any of my rounds that were fired.
You do recall just testifying to requesting more information from the detectives when you had the conversation with them. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And you said that you don't recall asking them about if your bullet struck someone. Is that correct?
That is correct. The day I met with Detective Kirby and Detective Casey, that was, I believe, 2 or 3 days after the incident, Mr. Brooks was taken into custody the night of. So when I was still at the police department, I knew that he had not been struck.
I'm sure you asked, you didn't say it, but you said you don't recall the information that you requested. Would that be fair to say?
I don't know specifically what questions I asked of them a year ago.
So it would be fair to say there was a lot of information that you still was unsure about at that point. Would that be fair to say?
That's correct.
So if there was information that you're acknowledging that you had no knowledge of, which would be essentially the reason why you would ask if they can volunteer more information to you, then how would there be any way of knowing if you struck the suspect?
Objection.
Grounds.
Sustained. It's a compound, confusing question. And I also think it mischaracterizes the testimony.
And you said you made a statement during your testimony that you had learned that the suspect was not injured. Do you recall who you learned that information from?
So after using deadly force, you're ultimately removed from the scene. When I was at the police department, I was with a support officer and another detective. And at that point, I was still answering questions for investigating officers for what I saw, what I knew, what I saw in the vehicle. And I believe Detective Stern was at our substation with Darrell Brooks after taking him into custody. And I was shown a photo at that point. I know I had asked if he sustained any injuries or if anyone else had sustained any injuries from my use of force. And at that point, I was not told that anyone had been struck by my gunfire.
So you just said you asked if the suspect or if anyone else was struck by the gunfire.
That's correct.
So you weren't sure at that point? You weren't sure?
I was not certain at that point. It was just pure chaos. And at that point, I did not know if anyone else was injured from my rounds, or up until I was confirmed that you were not injured, I did not know if anyone was hurt until I was told that.
So would it be fair to say that, as you just stated, you were unsure if the suspect or anyone else was injured? Would it be fair to say that there was a possibility because you did not know for certain?
Objection.
Grounds.
Sustained.
Grounds for the sustain, Your Honor.
Asked and answered.
After the vehicle passed you, did you observe it strike anyone?
I did not observe it strike anyone after it passed me.
Do you recall who you... Well, I think you did. I think you said you gave your report to Officer Kirby. Is that correct?
Detective Kirby, yes.
I'm sorry, Detective. Do you recall telling Detective Kirby that you were unaware of a vehicle on the parade route and you were unaware of people being injured?
Yes, I previously stated that.
Were you able to make out a license plates from the vehicle when it passed you?
I later learned that I must have, but I do not recall that.
So from what you recall at the time that the vehicle was passed, you don't recall getting the license plate?
At this time, I do not recall the license plate. When I spoke with other officers, that's when I explained to them that I was the one that had shot. It was not a suspect shooting, it was me. I believe I was talking to Detective Casey, and I must have provided a license plate to Detective Casey during that debrief on scene. I did not know about that until about 2 days later when I gave my statement to Detective Kirby and Detective Casey, because that is when I was informed by Detective Casey that I had actually provided him a correct license plate, but I don't remember that.
Any reason why you didn't mention the license plates in your report?
Because like I stated, I don't remember it.
So it'd be fair to say if you don't remember it, then it's a possibility that you didn't get the license plate number.
If Detective Casey is telling me that I told him on scene during a traumatic incident that I provided him the license plate of the vehicle, I'd have to believe that Detective Casey is correct. There's many things that you do not remember during a traumatic incident.
So you would describe it as a traumatic incident, but you do recall using deadly force and recalling what you was aiming for, but not the license plates or anything else like that.
That is correct.
Would it be fair to say that because you describe it as a traumatic event, that there was a lot of things that you probably don't recall about the incident?
I would agree with that. I know there's things that I did and saw that I don't really remember and I don't really want to remember.
Will one of those possibly be the suspect that you keep naming?
No.
And how did you come to the knowledge of the make and model of the vehicle when on the exhibit that was shown, you only had interaction with it for a few seconds? How were you able to make out the make and the model of the vehicle?
Because that vehicle model has been out for quite some time and I'm halfway decent with vehicles. And
so you've seen many Ford Escapes?
Yes.
And you said the model has been out for some time. So what do you mean by that? Do you mean
it's 2022 now, and that Ford model was approximately 2008-ish to maybe a 2011, 2010-ish. So yeah, they've been out for over a decade.
And how did you come to that knowledge of the estimate of the years that the model could have been? Would you agree that that's pretty difficult to know just off the bat?
No.
Would that be fair to say?
No.
So it would be pretty easy to tell the make and model in year of a vehicle just by looking at it.
That is correct.
So it would be fair to say if someone had a vehicle right here in front of you, you'd be able to tell just by looking at it for a couple of seconds the make, the model, and the year?
Depending on what vehicle it is, yeah, quite likely. I'm decent with vehicles.
What do you mean by decent?
I can recognize many vehicles that are manufactured. Part of being a police officer is dealing with vehicles.
Did you at any time see the registration of the vehicle that passed you?
Like I stated previous, I debriefed with Detective Casey during the incident, and he stated that I gave him a registration number, a registration plate for it. I do not recall giving him that registration plate, but Detective Casey informed me that I provided him a correct license plate for that vehicle.
Would it be fair to say that a registration kit would it be fair to say that that automatically links to the make and model and year of the car? Would it be fair to say that? That if you ran, or if we're judging by the license plates, if you were conducting a stop, and to do that you will have to run the license plates, would it be fair to say that all that information would come up in your computer when you run the license plate? That'd be fair to say?
You had a lot of questions right there. So
okay, let me back up then. So if you were conducting a traffic stop,
okay,
and you pulled up the license plates of the vehicle that you were stopping,
okay,
would the information registered to that vehicle show in your computer?
If the license plate is actually accurate and current to that actual vehicle, yes.
Just so we're clear, the information would come up though?
That is correct.
And did you have a system or any equipment that could have assisted you in learning the make and the model and year of the vehicle at the time of the incident?
No, I was on foot with no other equipment.
So is it fair to say that you did not know that information until later when you were told by Detective Casey or another detective?
No, because like I previously stated, I can recognize vehicles pretty well, and I knew it was a Ford Escape, and I knew the approximate year of it.
You did testify that, and you can also see from the exhibit video, that the front end of the vehicle was damaged. Would that be fair to say?
That is correct.
And you can still make out the make and model and year of the vehicle with extensive damage?
That is correct.
Could you see the emblem of the vehicle at that point?
I don't recall if I saw an emblem or not. I know the body style of the vehicle, and I knew it was a Ford Escape.
Would it be fair to say that many SUVs have the same type of body build?
I'm sure some vehicles do look similar.
So that would it be fair to say that there's a possibility that you could not make out the make and model and year of the vehicle, especially with being extensively damaged to the front?
No, I was confident that it was a Ford Escape.
Did you notice any tints on that vehicle?
The front windshield that I looked through, I know it was not tinted, or it was not tinted enough to not make me recognize you.
Did you see any tints on the side of the vehicle?
Not that I recall. And if they were, they weren't that dark.
You don't recall, though, for sure, if there were any tints to any windows of the vehicle you saw?
Well, all windows are tinted to some extent. It just depends on to what percentage of tint that they come with.
Explain what you mean by tint percentage.
So there's different varying degrees of tint that you can put on vehicles.
Can you elaborate for the jury?
I'll check.
Rounds.
I'll overrule. Ask your question again.
You stated that all cars come from the manufacturer with some level of tint, but you made a reference to percentage.
Correct.
Can you elaborate on percentage? What would constitute a darker tint versus a lighter tint?
Well, you've asked two questions now, so which one do you want him to answer first?
The last one, I'm sorry.
So you're asking about lighter
about the 10
versus darker.
percentage. About the 10%.
So like a 50% tint would be a lighter tint than like a 35% tint.
So the lower the percentage, the darker the tint.
That is correct.
Okay. You stated that you're pretty decent with making out make and model and years of vehicles based on your line of work. Would that be fair to say?
That is correct.
Would you know of the make and model of the vehicle that you saw that day? Would you know if those model vehicles come from the manufacturer with any tint?
To be honest with you, I don't work for Ford. I believe usually the front is approximately 50% tint, and the rears are usually, I think, 25 or 30 or something like that.
So from your knowledge, the backer windows are usually coming from the manufacturer, maybe a little bit darker than the front?
Correct.
No further questions.
Very briefly. So the barricades that we saw at the intersection where you were posted, those have been blown over by the wind?
Yes.
Did those barricades appear to slow down the SUV as it drove through them?
Objections, speculation.
No, it did not slow the vehicle down at all.
You discharged your firearm 3 times toward the vehicle?
That is correct.
Did all 3 rounds strike the vehicle?
Yes, they did.
Can we please put up for the jury exhibit number 3? We're going to start at the 2-minute and 59-second mark.
What exhibit is that?
3. We're at the 2:58-second mark on this exhibit number 3. Do you see a vehicle on the screen?
Yes, I do.
Does that appear to be the same same color of vehicle you saw drive through the intersection where you were posted?
Yes.
Let's play from this second, please. Pause. Does that appear to be the same make and model as the SUV you saw driving through your intersection?
Objection.
Overruled.
Clearly
Yes, it
tinted.
does.
Okay, let's play again from this point. Pause. Did you see a person wearing a gray hooded sweatshirt in that clip?
Yes, I did.
Was the appearance of that person and their clothing consistent with the person you saw driving the SUV through your intersection?
Objection. Speculation. Two different incidents.
Overruled.
Yes.
We put up for everybody, please, exhibit number 9. Does that appear to be the same vehicle that you saw driving through the intersection of Wisconsin and Maine?
Objection. Hearsay.
Overruled.
Yes.
Does that appear to be the same driver of that same vehicle?
Objection. Hearsay.
Overruled.
Yes.
We please put up for everybody exhibit number 169.
Objection. Relevancy.
See the photograph on the screen in front of you?
Yes.
Does that appear to be the same vehicle that you saw drive through the intersection of Wisconsin and Maine?
Yes.
Does that appear to be the same driver?
Yes.
What's going on with that front passenger window?
Looks like
Objection. Leading.
Overruled.
it looks like it's rolled down.
So if someone had, before this incident, painted that window black, covered it in a black paper bag, and taped it up with duct tape, and then rolled the window down, would that have prevented you seeing through front passenger window?
Objection. Speculation.
No.
Overruled.
Who was the person depicted in exhibits number 120, number 9, and number 169?
Darrell Brooks.
Thank you.
Objection. I do not consent to being called their name.
All right. Thank you, sir. You may step down. We are back on the record. Appearances are as they were before, so I presume the state's able to call its next witness.
Record was my ICF received.
I have not looked at my mail.
Also, for the record, I'm appearing by special appearance on behalf of my client.
I'm sorry, sir. I can't hear you. Could you start that over?
And I just wanted to state that I'm here. I'm here under special appearance on behalf of my client with all rights reserved.
State may call its next witness.
State calls Officer Christopher Moss.
Christopher, last name is Moss.
All right, I'm going to ask that exhibit number 99 be put up for the witness, please. Sir, do you see exhibit 99 on your screen? What do you recognize the photograph to depict?
It depicts a heavily damaged Ford Escape in the driveway.
Move to admit, permission to publish, Your Honor.
Objection.
Exhibit 99 is received. Permission to publish is granted. The objections overruled.
So here on the hood, near the windshield, was a hat, and then clearly seen hanging from the driver's side mirror is a headband that's partially illuminated.
The front of the vehicle, it appears to me that the front bumper is laying on the ground. Is that accurate, sir?
Objection. Leading.
Overruled. You may answer.
Yes, ma'am, that's accurate.
So to your knowledge, no one had touched or disturbed this vehicle, at least since the time you were present, before you photographed it?
Objection. Speculation.
Overruled.
At some point, did you look inside the vehicle? And I don't mean just to clear it of persons, I mean take a closer look inside the car.
Yes, ma'am, I did.
And what was your purpose in doing that, sir?
Due to the nature of what was happening and the exigency of trying to identify who may have been inside the vehicle, I did locate documentation of identifying in nature.
And do you remember the name on that paperwork?
Yes, ma'am, I do.
What was the name on the paperwork inside the vehicle?
Darrell Edward Brooks, Jr.
And in fact, was there more than one piece of paper inside the vehicle containing that same personal identifying information?
Objection. Speculative.
Overruled.
And there was more than one item.
Not from the photograph, but from your recollection, was the rear license plate clearly visible?
Objection. Leading.
Overruled.
Yes, ma'am, the rear license plate was clearly visible on the vehicle.
Did you attempt to run the license plate for this vehicle?
Yes, I did.
What information did you learn about the registration of this vehicle?
The vehicle displayed a Wisconsin registration plate which listed to a Don L. Woods.
Do you remember the approximate location of the street where Don Woods lived?
Objection. Hearsay. Irrelevant.
Overruled.
And the vehicle was registered to Don Woods solely?
Objection. Leading. Relevancy of who's it related to.
The objections are noted.
Do you know the relationship between Dawn Woods and Darrell Brooks?
Objection, speculation.
Overruled.
No, ma'am, I do not know the relationship.
All right, sir, thank you. I don't have any other questions. Oh, I'm sorry, I do have one other question about 99. I apologize, Your Honor.
Objection.
Overruled.
Do you know what time you snapped that photograph of Exhibit 99?
Yes, ma'am, I took that photograph on the date in question at 5:01 p.m.
All right, thank you. You're cross, Mr. Brooks.
You stated that you were flagged down by a Hispanic male, ran at you waving his hands. Would that be fair to say?
That's correct.
Do you recall his name?
I do.
And would you state it for the jury and for the record?
His name is Abel Liscato.
And do you recall if Mr. Liscano gave you any additional information during your traveling to where the vehicle was located?
I don't understand your question.
You stated that Mr. Liscano got into your vehicle and you traveled to where the vehicle was located. Is that fair to say?
That's correct.
Did you learn any additional information from Mr. Liscano? How do you say it?
Liscano.
Liscano. Did you learn during your travel to where the vehicle was located? Did you learn any additional information from Mr. Liscano?
Not while we were traveling to the vehicle.
So you traveled to the vehicle in complete silence?
No, he was trying to direct me with the location of the red Ford Escape.
Did he say he saw anyone driving the vehicle?
Objection, hearsay.
Sustained.
So all he told you was where the vehicle was. He didn't tell you if he saw anyone driving it?
Objection, hearsay.
Grounds.
The witness may answer the question as long as he does not answer with hearsay. Go ahead. Overruled.
Can you restate your question, please?
So all that Mr. Liscano already told you was the location of the vehicle, not if he saw anyone driving?
I object. That question calls for hearsay response, Your Honor.
I would agree hearing that again. Sustained.
Did he at all tell you that he saw someone in the vehicle?
Objection, hearsay.
Grounds.
Sustained.
Grounds for the sustained.
It's hearsay.
So all Mr. Liscano did was just direct you to the vehicle?
That's correct.
That's all you guys talked about during your trip to the vehicle?
Objection, asked and answered.
Grounds.
Sustained. It was asked.
When you were able to locate the vehicle, where did Mr. Liscano go?
Once the vehicle was located, I had Mr. Liscano stand by in my fleet.
Do you know if he made any report at that time?
Define report.
Did he make any report to law enforcement at that time?
I'm not sure if he did or not.
Do you recall Mr. Liscano yelling that there were subjects standing outside of the building?
Objection, Your Honor.
I'm going to excuse the jury while I take up a legal issue. I'll rise for the jury. Mr. Brooks, before I have you question this witness any further, it sounds like to me that you are attempting to offer through this witness the statements made by Mr. Liscano. If that is what you are trying to do, you may not do that. You will have to call Mr. Liscano as a witness if you so choose, if he's on your witness list. I had the jury removed so I could explain my ruling and why I'm going to direct you not to ask this witness questions about what Mr. Liscano may or may not have said.
I'm reading directly from his report.
That would be double hearsay then.
So it's not hearsay for the prosecutor to bring up?
I'm not going to talk about other rulings. There's been an objection by the state, and I'm sustaining the objection.
Then I don't think it's fair for me to object to hearsay from the prosecution along the lines of the same type of thing.
I'm not going to have a debate. I know you've made a number of hearsay objections, many of which the answers that were being provided were not hearsay. You have that book in front of you that I provided to you a number of days ago. There's the definitional section of the statute which defines hearsay. And then if you go on to 908,
I know what hearsay is.
And then 90803 has the exception. So unless you can give me an exception, sir, as to why this witness should be allowed to answer those questions, I'm going to, again, direct you not to ask these questions.
Directly from his report, the report that he wrote. Nothing is coming from. I'm reading directly from his report. That's what I have.
Doesn't change the fact that it's hearsay.
You said what?
That doesn't change the fact that it's hearsay.
So
it
his report is
another
hearsay?
level of hearsay. It's an out-of-court statement.
So
not this witness made, but what another witness made. So you have to.
So I can't read from his report that he wrote.
You can't ask this witness questions that call for a hearsay answer unless there's no objection from the state.
So I might as well not read the report that he wrote then if I can't question him about the report that he wrote.
That's your misunderstanding, sir, what is hearsay. All I can tell you is I'm sustaining the objection. I'm going to bring the jury back out.
Clear bias.
Mr. Brooks, I understand you may disagree with
or agree to being called that name. For the record, again, I'm here as a third-party intervener on behalf of my client. I don't know why that's not understood by now. So I guess I can't bring up the plaintiff either, huh? I could agree with you.
All right.
Thank you, everyone. Please be seated. Continue with your questions, sir.
I got to tread lightly.
The jury will disregard that last comment.
I don't know why.
And that one as well.
Probably.
It's not your opportunity to testify. You'll be given an
I'm not
opportunity
testifying.
should you choose
I'm
later,
not
sir, but
testifying.
please question the witness.
If
Thank
I
you.
could ever get to it, I'll do that.
And again, the jury will disregard that statement.
You made reference to a hat being on the hood. Can you pull Exhibit 99 up again?
Are you asking the state to do that, sir?
Yeah, can it please be pulled up and
Sure.
published? You testified to this being the hat, right?
That's correct.
And from this picture, can you tell what that is?
Not specifically.
So how do we know if that's a hat from looking at this picture?
From looking at this picture, it would be difficult to determine if that's actually a hat.
So it'd be fair to say you don't know what that is.
Based on this picture, you're
Based
right.
on this picture.
Based on this picture, I'm not able to determine what that item is.
Would it be also fair to say we can't even determine if that's outside or inside of the vehicle at that point?
I would disagree and say that is on the exterior of the vehicle,
And how
between
would
the
you make that
hood.
assumption if you can't tell what it is?
Objection, argumentative.
Grounds.
Sustained.
Can you clear that? You can definitively say from this picture that you can tell where the item is based on this picture.
Yes.
Are you going off what you found or what you can see from the picture?
I can see from this picture that that item is on the exterior of the vehicle between the hood that is destroyed and the windshield.
So it's on the hood,
It is between the hood and the windshield of the vehicle.
and you can tell that from this picture.
Objection as an answer.
Grounds.
Argumentative.
Sustained as to both grounds.
And from this picture, you can tell what this is.
Yes.
Just from the picture.
Yes.
And how do you come to that determination?
Based on the fact that it's hanging on the exterior of the vehicle from the driver's side mirror, that it is in the shape of a headband, and it is partially illuminated in this photograph with LED lighting.
It could be fair to say that it's anything. Would you not say that that's fair? Just from looking at the picture, it doesn't necessarily say, or it's not 100% identifiable from this picture. Would that be fair to say?
Objection, compound question.
Sustained as to the form of the question.
Just from strictly looking at this picture, you can't positively say what the item is.
Objection. That's a mischaracterization of his testimony.
Sustained.
Clear the photo.
You're asking Madam Clerk to please
Clear the
clear
photo.
it. Mr. Brooks, I'd ask that you show some deference to my clerk and not bark orders at her and use simple courtesy. Thank you. And thank you, Madam Clerk.
Will I be awarded the same, Your Honor?
Please ask your next question,
Will
sir.
I be awarded the same, Your Honor?
Please ask your next question.
I will. I just want to know if I'll be awarded the
I have
the
been.
same.
Please continue.
Did you talk to anyone who lived in the residence?
I don't recall the specific persons I talked to or where they resided.
So it's fair to say you talked to someone.
There were multiple people outside of the residence and in the area at that time that I spoke briefly to.
But you don't know if any of them was the renter or owner of the driveway.
I do not recall.
Do you recall asking anyone if the vehicle belonged to somebody who may have stayed in that general area?
I do not recall asking that question to anyone.
You did state that you cleared the area. Would that be fair to say?
No, I stated I cleared the vehicle, not the area.
Did you clear the area?
Eventually, we did clear the back portion of the residence to ensure there were no suspects or victims.
Who is we?
Persons of law enforcement.
And did you wait until law enforcement came before you started to do that? Or did you start on your own kind of?
Upon arrival to the location of the suspect vehicle, I was by myself, so I initially cleared the vehicle to ensure that there were no potential threats to myself.
So would it be fair to say when you found the vehicle that you didn't locate anyone inside the vehicle?
Correct. No one was located inside the vehicle at that time.
And you also stated that you cleared the vehicle for possible threats to yourself. If no one was in the vehicle, what did you need to clear the vehicle? What would be the threat?
Based on, again, as I earlier stated, what had occurred in the downtown, plus the fact that Officer Skolin had fired rounds at this vehicle, I was unsure who or what may be inside the vehicle.
So would it be fair to say that, well, let me back up. You took this photo, correct?
That is correct.
So that would mean you were, at least by that time, sure that no one was in the vehicle. Would that be fair to say?
That is correct.
So did you clear the vehicle before taking the picture or afterward?
I cleared the vehicle before I took the photograph.
Did you find any threats in there?
No.
Did you do any other investigating after you had took this photo?
Can you rephrase the question?
Did you do any other investigating after you took this photo?
After the photographs were collected of the vehicle in place from multiple angles, I did locate identifying information inside the vehicle.
What I'm asking is, so let me back up. So that was the extent of your investigation was finding whatever you found in the vehicle at that point?
Correct.
Grounds?
I'll withdraw.
Correct.
So when you were clearing the vehicle, would it be fair to say that you could have done
the same investigational work at that time?
No, that would not be fair to say.
And why not?
Because when you're clearing a vehicle to ensure that there are no threats to you, you're not looking for anything specific as far as evidentiary value. You're looking for a threat to your person.
So you would clear the vehicle of threats after being in the vehicle to do that, and then go back into the vehicle and look for, or start investigating rather.
Correct.
Why not do them all at once? Is that a procedural thing, or?
Asked and answered, Your Honor. I object.
Grounds.
Sustained.
Is it usually procedure to investigate later on after clearing for threats?
Yes, you always want to ensure that where you're working on an investigation is clear of threats and that you are safe.
Would that be the same protocol if you were searching a home?
Objection. Relevance.
Grounds.
Sustained.
Grounds for the sustain.
Relevant.
And you made mention that the vehicle wasn't, I guess I would say, touched, or between the time that you were flagged down with the location of the vehicle until you actually observed the vehicle, you stated that you don't believe the vehicle was touched in any way in that time?
Objection. That's a misstatement of his testimony.
Grounds. You said something similar to
Sustained.
Are you sure that the vehicle was not touched in the time that you were flagged down about the location of the possible vehicle and observing the vehicle?
I am unaware if the vehicle was manipulated in any fashion from the time that Mr. Lascano flagged me down and to the time that I located the vehicle in the driveway.
Do you know approximately how long it took you to get to the vehicle when you were initially flagged down about the location of the vehicle?
I do not know how long it took me to get to the vehicle upon being flagged down.
So it's possible that it could have been manipulated?
Yes, it's possible.
At the time that you located the vehicle, were you aware of any suspect identification or name?
Can you restate your question, please?
At the time you located the vehicle, were you aware of any suspect or name of suspect?
No, I was unaware of any names of any suspect involved in the incident at the time I located the vehicle.
And when did you learn of that information, if you learned of that information?
I only learned the information of a possible suspect upon locating the identifying documents inside the vehicle.
At the time you found that information, did you immediately regard that information to be the possible suspect?
Yes, since it was in the vehicle that was heavily damaged.
And at some point you ran the license plates number. Would that be fair to say?
Correct, I did.
And you also stated that it was registered to someone that was not the suspect. Would that be fair to say?
I did not know if the person registered the vehicle to was a suspect or not.
You also stated that you found identifying paperwork in your investigation of the vehicle. Did that information match the identity of who the vehicle was registered to?
No, the identifying information, again, for Mr. Brooks that was inside the vehicle did not match the registration.
For the record, I don't identify by that name. Yet again, stating that for the record.
For the record, the jury will disregard that commentary by the defendant, and it also mischaracterizes the witness's testimony.
It does not. I was just stating for the record. The information you found in the car, the vehicle was not registered to that person, correct?
That's correct.
So there's a possibility that at any time, multiple people can utilize that vehicle. Would that be fair to say?
Objection. Speculation.
Grounds.
Calls for speculation. Sustained.
Would you agree that a vehicle registered to one person and information found by another person constitutes that more than one person used the vehicle?
Objection.
Grounds.
Go ahead.
The question was, does that prove that more than one person could drive the car? That's an improper question.
That wasn't the question.
Sustained and assumes facts, not in evidence.
State that last part again.
It assumes facts, not in evidence, your question.
Is it fair to say that people leave all types of informations in family members' vehicles at any time?
Objection.
Grounds.
Irrelevant. Speculation.
Sustained.
Grounds for the sustained.
Ask your next question, Mr. Brooks.
May I have the grounds, please?
The objection has been sustained.
May I have the grounds?
The court's not answering that. The record is self-evident.
Is that a tacit agreement?
Sir, I don't know what a tacit agreement is, so please keep going.
Clearly know what it is. Would it be fair to say, and this is along the lines of the same question, would it be fair to say that at some point you've left items in other people's vehicles?
Objection.
Grounds.
Relevance.
Sustained.
Grounds for the sustained.
Next question, please, sir. I've sustained this question multiple times, multiple
wasn't
ways
the
you've
same
asked it.
question.
Next question, please.
May I have the grounds?
90611, sir.
May I have the grounds?
Next question, please.
Is it to relevancy? Is it to hearsay?
Under 90611, ask your next question or I will cut off your cross-examination. Please ask your next question,
You
sir.
have to give the grounds, though, Your Honor, especially if I'm merely just asking for the grounds of the sustained.
Sir, ask your next question.
What's the point of me asking questions if I can't ask anything?
The jury will disregard his commentary. that he just stated right now.
Do you recall speaking to, well, you said you spoke to a few people you didn't know if they were the owner of the house or the driveway or the renter. Would that be fair to say?
Yes, that's correct.
Did anyone you spoke to give you a description of a possible driver?
I was given multiple descriptions by multiple parties of multiple suspects.
And what do you mean by multiple descriptions of multiple suspects? 2, 3, 4 people, 5?
I was given information that one male black suspect that was taller, wearing blue pants and black, had run southbound on Maple towards College. Additionally, I was given information that 2 shorter male blacks wearing gray sweatpants had run in a westerly direction from behind the residence at 338 Maple. And then later I was also given another description of a male black, unknown height, wearing like a gray sweatshirt and pants.
You said medium height for the last description?
Unknown height.
Unknown. Okay, I'm sorry. Unknown height. Did anyone you talked to report the sound of a crash?
No one I spoke to at this location reported anything regarding the sound of a crash.
Did you see any signs that there may have been a crash once you and other officers were securing the area?
As far as the vicinity around the vehicle or the vehicle itself?
The general area.
As far as the general area, given the time of day, I was unable to determine if there was any signs of a crash.
When talking to the people that gave you the descriptions, did they identify themselves as living close or living in any of the houses in that area?
No, due to the chaotic nature of the event, did not ascertain where these individuals lived.
Do you know if they made any other statements to any other law enforcement that was there present with you at that time?
Not to my knowledge.
Why do you think you received so many different descriptions of suspects?
Multiple people from multiple angles observed different things.
Did any of the people that you spoke with give any reason to why the suspects that they identified would run from the scene?
Objection. Speculation also calls for hearsay.
Grounds.
Sustained.
Grounds.
Next question, sir.
Do you recall any of the officers that were securing the scene with you having a K-9 present?
Yes, I do.
Do you recall what officer that was?
That was Officer Bausman.
Eventually you left the scene where the vehicle was found and started searching the area?
Yes, I transferred command of that location to Officer Buttrin.
And do you recall what time you went back to where you initially observed the vehicle?
I do not recall what time I made it back, but it was some hours later.
And did you go back to your department after leaving from the scene where you found the vehicle?
Yes, I was directed by my command staff to return to the police department.
And were you instructed to make contact with anyone at that point?
Yes, I was.
Do you recall who?
I do.
And you stayed for the jury and for the record?
Yes, upon arrival to the police department, I was directed to make contact with District Attorney Sue Opper.
And when you say Sue Opper, are you referring to District Attorney Sue Opper?
Yes, that's what I said.
Is she here in court today?
Yes, she is.
Can you point her out for the jury?
She's seated at the prosecution table, wearing the gray cardigan.
Let the record reflect that the witness has identified Attorney Opper.
No objection, Your Honor.
Do you recall what the nature of the contact was with Attorney Opper?
Yes, I was directed to locate Attorney Opper in the downtown area at the scene of the parade incident and subsequently transport her back to the City of Waukesha Police Department.
So I'm assuming make contact with her at the parade, so you went and picked her up?
That's correct. I picked her up in the area of Maple in Wisconsin.
Did you continue that contact after picking her up? And where did you go after picking up Attorney Opper?
As I stated, once I picked her up, I transported her back to the City of Waukesha Police Department.
And did you continue to have contact at that point?
I did.
And what was the nature of that contact?
District Attorney Opper and I worked together to draft a search warrant for the 2010 red Ford Escape.
You said a search warrant?
Correct.
Initially, when you secured the vehicle and then investigated the vehicle after securing it, what did you need to search for at that point that you needed a search warrant?
After I cleared the vehicle, it was no longer touched at that point. So therefore, later on, it was required to have a search warrant to continue processing that vehicle.
So you just stated that the vehicle wasn't touched between those times. So what if anything new, did you need to search for?
Objection. Argumentative.
Grounds.
The purpose of the search warrant is to do a more slow, methodical search of the vehicle for said items of evidentiary value.
But it would be fair to say that after initially clearing the vehicle, as you said, for any possible threats to you and investigating the vehicle further a second time, what did you feel would be of evidentiary value at that point that you hadn't already observed before?
Objection. Asked and answered.
Grounds.
Argumentative.
Grounds. I'm referring to him stating the evidentiary value.
Asked and answered. Sustained.
So what was the evidentiary value that you were looking for
Same objection.
with the search warrant?
The same question a different way, so I'm going to sustain it. It's been asked, it's been answered. Next question, please.
Can you give an example of what evidentiary value is?
An example would be like a shell casing or a spot of blood that can render DNA results, things of that nature.
Did you find any of those things when obtaining the search warrant?
Objection.
Grounds.
Well, that's factually inaccurate, Your Honor.
It assumes a fact, not an evidence.
Did you find, upon obtaining the search warrant, were you able to find anything of evidentiary value?
Same objection. Assumes
Grounds.
a fact, not an evidence, Your Honor.
Sustained. It assumes facts, not an evidence.
After obtaining the search warrant, did you yourself go back and search the vehicle?
No.
Do you recall what officer was dispatched to do to execute the search warrant?
No, I do not know who ultimately searched the vehicle.
Do you recall if the vehicle was then towed from that area at some point?
Yes, the vehicle was moved at some point.
Do you recall where it was moved to?
I do not know where the vehicle was moved to.
You stated earlier that you did observe a gunshot in the windshield. Did you notice any other bullet marks?
No, the only mark that I observed related to a gunshot was the bullet hole in the windshield on the passenger side.
You said on the passenger side. Was it to the passenger side window, the passenger side chair, the passenger side dash? Do you recall where the bullet hole was?
Front windshield on the passenger side.
Were you at any time given a copy of the search warrant?
Yes.
Is it standard protocol that, being that you were the one that obtained the search warrant, is it usually a thing where you don't have to be the one to execute it? Any other officer can execute it?
Based on the requirement of the search warrant to process this vehicle for items of evidentiary value, that's beyond the scope of my training and experience. So therefore it was relayed to persons that are capable of actually doing that.
But you can, you said it's beyond your level or something. I didn't catch where you said it was beyond your level or something.
It's beyond my scope of training and experience.
Beyond your scope of training. The actual writing of the search warrant isn't above your scope of training. Would that be fair to say?
That's correct.
But the execution is?
Of this particular search warrant, yes.
What made this particular search warrant different than any ones you've ever written or obtained before?
Given the gravity of the situation and the resulting effects of what this vehicle was used for, persons that are highly skilled in collecting items of evidentiary value are obviously the people we want to do that rather than a patrol officer.
And you were able to get that search warrant signed, correct?
That's correct.
Do you remember by whom?
Yes.
Can you state for the record and for the jury?
The on-call judge was the Honorable Jennifer Darrell.
That would be the judge right now in the courtroom.
Yes, that's correct.
Did that complete your part of the investigation for that incident at that time?
Yes, upon getting the search warrant, I was relieved of my duties.
Did you ever come back into the investigation in any way after that point?
After that point, no.
After your part of the investigation ended, were you able to obtain any more information that you didn't know the night of your investigation?
Objection, vague, cause for speculation.
Sustained.
Grounds for the sustain, Your Honor.
Please ask your next question.
Do you recall having any more contact with Attorney Opera after that initial night?
No.
When were you aware that it was a possibility that you could be called to testify in this matter?
When I received a subpoena to testify in this matter.
Excuse me, I mean.
When I received a subpoena to testify in this matter.
Was that subpoena served to you by the district attorney's office?
Yes, it was.
Was it served by Attorney Opera?
I don't recall who served me directly.
Do you recall when you received that subpoena?
I don't recall the exact date, but it was a few months ago.
So it's pretty recent, but a little time since you received it.
Yes, that's fair to say.
Would you by chance know who the plaintiff is in this matter? Grounds.
Relevance.
Grounds.
Sustained.
Ever seen or talked to the plaintiff? Had any physical interaction with the plaintiff in this matter?
Objection, vague and compound
Grounds.
question.
Sustained.
You even know if there's a plaintiff in this matter?
Objection,
Grounds.
irrelevant.
Sustained.
You know who filed the complaint in this matter?
The complaint was filed by the district attorney's office.
Do you know if it was filed by Attorney Opera?
I don't know particularly who filed the complaint.
And during your time in law enforcement, would it be fair to say that whoever files the complaint is a party to the matter?
Objection.
Grounds.
Beyond the scope of the witness's
Grounds.
knowledge, Your Honor.
Sustained. Next question. please.
Grounds for the sustain, Your Honor.
Next question, please.
Any reason why the state of Wisconsin would be identified as the plaintiff when they did not file the complaint?
Objection, argumentative, misstatement of the law.
Grounds.
Sustained.
Grounds for the sustain, Your Honor.
Ask your next question, please.
Was that the grounds?
Next question, please.
The jury deserves to know these.
The jury will disregard that last statement. I've sustained the objection, sir. Ask your next question, please.
I'm aware that it was a sustained. I'm aware. I just wanted to know the grounds. Can't keep hiding stuff from the jury.
Mr. Brooks, the court is not hiding anything from anyone, and the jury will disregard that last statement. It is not evidence in any way in this case.
Would it be fair to say that any case has a plaintiff?
Objection.
Grounds.
Lack of foundation beyond the scope of the witness's knowledge.
Sustained.
Would it be? Can I rephrase the question?
Go ahead. I can't say whether it will be answered or not, but you can go ahead and
I
rephrase
can't rephrase, just so we're clear. Whether it's answered or not, I can still rephrase the question.
I don't know what the question will be, sir, so I can't make a ruling that's advisory. So ask your next question, please.
Are you aware that in any case brought into a courtroom, there has to be a plaintiff?
Objection.
Grounds.
Same question.
Grounds is
It
not
also
the same
misstates
question.
the law, so sustained.
There's no plaintiff. How's their case?
Move to strike.
The jury will disregard the last comment and statement made by Mr. Brooks.
Grounds. There's a
It's a
defendant. There has to be a
misstatement of
plaintiff.
the law. It's not relevant. This jury will be the judge of the facts. The court is the judge of the law.
If there's a defendant, there has to be a plaintiff.
Mr. Brooks, please stop. The jury will also disregard that statement. It's a mischaracterization of the law. It's a misstatement of the law.
Based on what law or fact, Your Honor?
And I'll address that with Mr. Brooks once again after the jury has been excused. One final time, you may ask another question. Otherwise, I will, and it must not be along the same lines.
Do you know of anyone who filed a claim in this matter?
Objection.
Grounds.
Irrelevant.
Grounds.
Also vague, so I'll sustain it.
So the grounds is vagueness.
And relevance.
Is it vague or is it relevant?
Sustained, Mr. Brooks. Next question.
So since your initial night of investigation, you've done no investigation since then in this matter?
Correct.
And have you seen any news reports?
Objection. Relevance.
Can I finish the question?
There's been no identification, so under 906.11, meaning of I'm going to sustain the objection without hearing the rest of the question. I don't see how it would have any relevance. I'll let you make an offer of proof after we're outside the presence of the jury, and if necessary, you can recall this witness.
In that case, then, since that is stated on the record, no further questions. I would like to finish at some point.
Sir, finish your cross-exam as to
Just
that
said
limited
no further questions.
Okay, but as to that limited topic only. So if there are other things outside that topic, please finish your questioning.
I just said 2 times. I'm going to say it again. No further questions.
All right, thank you then, sir. State have any redirect?
No, nothing else. Thank you, Judge.
All right, you may be excused. I'm going to excuse the jury momentarily to take up a legal issue with the parties. You may make an offer of proof, sir, as it relates to news reports that he has seen.
So the offer of proof would just be to that one question?
What would the question be?
The question was, would have been, if I was allowed to finish it, had he seen any news reports directly connected to the incident?
But what's the relevance
the same
for
thing
him?
the same thing that many other witnesses have been asked, and it was never sustained then. It was never even objected to. So it was the same. It was
Let's
essentially
focus
one of
on
the same
the
questions.
specific objection that was posed and my
And what was the grounds for
willingness
it?
to give you an opportunity to provide the court with an offer of proof. This was what relevance would this particular witness seeing news reports have to his testimony?
The same thing that any other witness that was asked the same question.
Which would be what? You have to be specific, sir.
I
I'm not
was
going to
specific.
assume I understand what you are saying.
Have they saw any reports related to the incident? That's the same question that's been asked by numerous
Well, there would
witnesses.
be a follow-up to that. So how is it relevant to this witness's testimony?
It's relevant to anyone who gets on the stand's testimony.
What's the legal basis you believe it's relevant to his testimony, sir?
It obviously forms an opinion.
You need to explain to me, sir, the legal basis why you believe I should allow that witness to be asked that question and then any follow-up based on his response.
What would have been the follow-up? It would
I'm
have
asking you,
got
sir,
asked and it would
you're
have got
the one
answered.
who's the proponent of this particular testimony and this questioning and the evidence. So explain to me your legal basis for why you believe it's relevant to ask, or any other reason, any legal basis you believe it's that I should allow that question to be asked.
I don't understand how you want me to answer that. I've stated the reason why I asked the question.
No, you stated it's obvious, but it's not obvious to me, so I'm asking you to explain it.
I also stated that I just clearly stated, that it goes towards biasness. That would be relevant.
Wait, it goes to what?
Biased.
Bias?
Biased.
No, bias. B-I-A-S. There's no T at the end. Bias. I want to make sure I understand your reasoning correctly, sir. So you're saying it goes to bias. How does it go to bias of this witness, sir?
How would it not go to if you see something in the news?
It's not a proper legal argument, sir.
Okay, well, I don't know how you want me to answer that.
How would what he saw subsequent to his investigation impact either what he did beforehand or his testimony here? You have to make an offer of proof as to that. Without that, I'm not going to allow it.
You didn't allow it anyway, so what do it matter at this point?
I'm giving you the opportunity. It's called an offer of proof.
Okay,
I said I would recall the witness if I determined.
I'm well aware what an offer of proof is.
Okay,
I'm well aware.
So make your offer of proof.
I don't need to. It's clear. It's very clear. I don't see anything funny either.
It's not funny, sir. It's a circular argument. You're telling me that it's clear.
I wasn't referring that to you. The person that it was referred to know who they are.
Well, let's stay on task, please. So
I'm trying to.
You're claiming it goes to bias, but in what way?
May I say this for the record, Your Honor? It's hard to stay on task when it seems like the prosecution can ask essentially anything they want to ask.
Mr. Brooks,
but then when I
had an objection before. Well, here's the thing: you want to go off target and you want to bring up things from the past. I can't explain to you why sometimes the state has an objection and other times they don't. But when an objection has been made, it is my obligation to rule on it. And so there was an objection.
I'm aware of that, Your Honor. But I'm also aware of the fact, and it's clear that I object quite often, and every single time I object is just thrown to the side. Every single time.
Well, I would disagree with that characterization, sir.
And
I make my rulings in this case
Why would you disagree with that?
I'm like an umpire.
Point out one time.
I'm like an umpire in a baseball game, sir. I call and see the legal objections as I see them. That is my role, and that is what I do. And
are you kidding me?
That's exactly what I do. I'm an umpire, sir. I am a referee in this trial.
If you're the
and let me finish.
Okay.
Let me finish, Mr. Brooks.
I apologize. I'm letting you finish.
Sometimes parties make objections. Sometimes they don't. There can be a variety of reasons. You make a lot of objections in this case. From my perspective, you make a number of objections, I rule on them, and you disagree with them. But that doesn't mean I'm casting things aside. I'm making a call based on the rules of evidence, which are the statutes, which once again, I'll point out, I gave you, sir, near the beginning of this trial, so that you would have a better understanding of what those rules are. If you choose not to read them, that's fine. But you cannot then claim that there is somehow foul play because you haven't read them and you don't understand what they are. Your ignorance of the law is not a defense for any of this. Okay, and you getting frustrated with me because you don't understand that? I mean, it's just what it is. I've asked you repeatedly for an offer of proof. You want to ask this witness who had limited involvement regarding a part of an investigation related to that vehicle. I don't see the relevance, even to bias, for which I will allow him to answer that. You haven't given me a legal or factual reason to overrule the objection and to bring the witness back on the stand and to question him about his viewing of any news reports. So with that, we are going to take a very short break.
Can I release at least rebuttal to what you just said since you asked me not to?
I don't need a rebuttal, sir. You may not agree with me, but I've made
it's not about agreeing. You just told me not to interrupt you, and I didn't. So I at least deserve the chance to put on the record a rebuttal.
What would you like to put on the record as it relates to the specific issue for which I was giving you the opportunity to be heard? Not anything else. Not subject matter jurisdiction.
Now you
whether
said
the
that.
state's doing other things. I'm
up,
only asking you to address the offer of proof.
No,
if you have something, go ahead. But only as it relates to that.
I want to address your position because you said you're like the umpire, right?
Well, I'm not. Okay, go ahead, sir. I'm not sure why you need to respond to that.
Because it needs to be on the record. If you're the umpire, that means you're the referee.
That's what I'm doing here today, sir.
And you're not reffing fair if the jury's not allowed to hear things that's important for them to know.
I respectfully disagree, sir. Again, just because you believe the law means you have a right to question all these witnesses about who the plaintiff is and about subject matter jurisdiction doesn't make it so.
I didn't question anybody about that.
Okay?
That was between you and I.
why? That didn't have nothing to do with a witness. I've
You
never
want to
once
question
questioned a
these
witness
witnesses,
about subject
sir,
matter
about
jurisdiction.
whether they are aware of complaints. And the funny thing is, sir, I sometimes let that question be answered for reasons that are completely different, I believe, than why you want them in. I am not going to explain that because I don't have to
say
explain
why.
that.
What's my reason for asking it?
Well, I believe you've made it very clear, sir. So here's the bottom line.
I don't.
One of my roles is to be the umpire.
Then you got to be
All right?
fair, Your Honor. You're a public servant.
I am fair, and I'm
No,
going
you're
to follow
not.
the
You're not
rules
being
of
fair.
evidence,
Your
sir.
Honor,
That
this is
doesn't
why I
mean
say that.
unfettered questioning
This is
of
why I say that.
witnesses that are not relevant or that call for hearsay or for a variety of other reasons that are speculative. There's a whole host of reasons in the rules of evidence, sir, that require me to make those determinations.
You're not being fair.
I respect
You're not
that
being
you
fair,
might
though.
not think it's always fair, but
It's
I
not.
disagree with the characterization. I think it has more to do with your lack of understanding of the rules of evidence and the rules of procedure, which you knowingly and freely and voluntarily and deliberately made a choice to represent yourself. And
you keep
I
saying
warned
that
you at
because
that
it sounds
time,
good
sir.
on the
You did
record,
that
but
at
it's
your
not.
peril.
It's not accurate. You accepted when you gave me the paperwork, Your Honor. I
I'm
gave
not-
it back to
I'm
you.
not going in. I didn't say that, sir, so we can go back and rehash all of those things.
But you know you accepted
All right.
the way that I gave you the paperwork back. So once
and
you
I made
accept
findings
that,
on the record, which I will stand by, sir. So
and I'm not,
with that,
I'm not
we're going to
arguing.
take.
I'm not arguing your findings.
I
I'm
need
not
a comfort
arguing
break.
the findings,
I'm sure
Your Honor.
you need a comfort. I would like to get through one more
You got it.
witness today.
You got
Thank
it. You got to
We're
call
off
it
the
fair.
record, sir.
You got.
I want to bring to the party's attention that the court just now issued a decision and order in this case. I've signed it. Madam Clerk is pulling it through, and I will provide the parties with a written copy here in court. It addresses the matter of subject matter jurisdiction.
So we're going to address it.
No, I've issued an order. I'm going to give it to you. That's why I'm addressing it. You can review it later, but there's a written decision now denying your motion to dismiss.
So is that including verified proof that you have subject matter jurisdiction? Because it has yet to be verified or proven.
Mr. Brooks, you keep making that statement, but it's a misstatement of the requirements in the law.
So it doesn't have to be proven?
You are going to get a written decision. That's how I'm addressing this.
I accept for value and return for value this document.
Thank you for noting that.
Is that verified proof that you have subject matter jurisdiction?
The decision and order speaks for itself, sir.
Is it verified proof that you have it?
Sir, I believe it answers your questions.
I don't believe so.
Unequivocally.
There's no verified proof proven yet. There's no verified proof if we're in common law or admiralty law. What court is this?
Sir, I believe your answers will be in that decision and order.
I don't believe so.
Well, have you read it yet?
I don't have to.
Okay.
I accept it for value and return for value, so.
It's a final order for
Verified
purposes
proof
of
is in
appeal.
there? Verified proof is in
So if
there?
you'd like to challenge that, you can take that up with the appellate courts.
Verified proof is in there?
All rise.
Because I don't think it is. Proof of claim is not in there either. No one has a claim.
Statement called. Next witness.
State calls Carlos Arachiga.
Go ahead, your witness.
Were you home at 338 Maple in the upper unit on the afternoon of that day, the 21st?
Yes.
Do you recall at some point hearing a noise or something that was out of place outside of your window?
Yeah, during that time I was sitting down, and to my left is a window that looks down to the driveway, and when I was sitting down I heard like a big scratch sort of, and as soon as I look out I was able to see that there was a vehicle that I had never recognized. When I saw the car, I just saw that it was really beat up.
Could you describe the vehicle for us that you saw in the driveway?
It was a red vehicle, SUV.
When you looked out your second story window at the driveway and you saw the vehicle, at that time could you see whether there was any damage to the vehicle?
Yeah.
Answered that already.
Overruled.
Said it was
May
beat up.
answer.
We'll come back to that. I want to ask you a couple more questions about this person that you saw. Was this person directly below you in your vantage point, or was it off to the side?
It was more.
Relevancy.
It was more towards the side. It wasn't really below me.
Did you see what direction that person went after they jumped over the hood of the SUV?
It would have been sort of straight ahead.
So would that have been toward or away from Maple?
That would have
the
been
witness.
Overruled.
It was towards Maple Avenue.
Can we please display for the witness only exhibit number 130?
Objection. What's the relevancy?
So I'll sustain your objection.
Objection. What's being looked up that's not already in the exhibit? Look like something was being looked up.
I don't know.
Is it
They're
exhibit? Is it?
looking for an, can
I guess my objection would be: is there an exhibit being shown, or is there being
There's
something
nothing shown to the witness right now. It's off.
Something popped up on the screen to look like they was trying to Google something, and then now my screen is off now. So that wouldn't be an exhibit.
I didn't see anything. We can take that up later if need be. But
Just for the record, I know it's 140 exhibits, so it shouldn't be no more than that. You can't create exhibits right now.
When you are standing in your driveway facing Maple Avenue, if you wanted to go to downtown Waukesha, would you go left or right?
Objection. That was asked and answered. He asked north or south, and he already answered that question.
this question has not been asked.
So the people who were running past your house on Maple, were they running towards downtown or were they running towards La Estacion?
Towards La
Objection.
Estacion.
Asked
Sorry,
and
was there an
answered.
objection?
Asked and answered.
Now, at the time that you were standing around the SUV with those other people, how much time had gone past between that time and the time that you first heard the noise and looked out your window upstairs?
Objection. Relevancy.
Overruled.
Can we please show for everyone exhibit number 65? Do you recognize the area that's depicted in this exhibit?
Yeah.
If we could play here from the beginning.
Objection. What's the relevancy?
Overruled.
Did you see on the video there a figure emerging from your driveway?
Yeah.
Could you circle that figure for us?
Right here.
Does that figure appear to be consistent with the figure you saw hopping over the hood of the SUV?
Objection. Speculative.
Based on what you've seen so far in this exhibit, does that figure appear to be traveling in a path consistent with what you remember?
Yeah.
Objection. Hearsay. You say you can't see the street from the window.
I'm not going to show for the witness only, please, exhibit number 66. Do you see a vehicle in your driveway in this picture?
Yeah, it's the red SUV that I described.
We'll show now for the witness only, please, exhibit number 67. And actually, Judge, just to be a little more efficient with time, I'm going to move through the rest of these photos and lay the foundation and then move them all in at once.
Go ahead.
Sorry. All right. We'll show the witness only, please, 68. We'll show the witness now, exhibit 69, please. Exhibit 70 for the witness only, please. Let's show the witness number 71, please.
Objection. What's the relevancy of all these photos?
We show the witness number 72, please. Finally, 73 for the witness only, please. You recognize what we're
Objection.
looking at here in exhibit. I'm sorry, there was an objection.
Where's the relevancy of this? What we're looking at?
Do exhibits 67 through 73 accurately portray your driveway, your backyard, and your neighbor's backyard? I move exhibits 67 through 73 into evidence and request permission to publish.
Objection. No relevancy.
Court notes the objection. It's overruled.
This is just a close-up view of that red SUV.
Yeah.
Objection. Leading.
Sustained as to the form of the question.
What is this?
It is the red SUV.
And you referenced a stump earlier when you were describing this photograph. Can you point that out for us? Maybe circle it for us?
Objection. Relevancy as to a stump. What does that have to do with?
Overruled.
Was that stump in that position in your driveway before you saw this red SUV?
Objection. Relevancy.
Overruled.
Exhibit 69, please. Do you know if any of those three vehicles sustained damage on November 21st?
Objection. Hearsay.
Overruled. He was asked if he knew, not what he heard.
Objection. Speculation.
Overruled.
Let's move on to Exhibit 70, please.
Objection. What's the relevancy of this?
We moved a little bit more towards the left, just getting a better angle of the backside of the house.
But now we're facing to the right.
Yeah,
Objection,
but now
leading.
we're facing right.
If we go to the next photograph, Exhibit 71, please. See the streetlight again?
Yeah.
Is that the same streetlight we saw in Exhibit 70?
Objection. Answered that already. Same street light, same question, basically.
Do you see an orange cone in this photograph?
Objection. Relevancy.
What, if anything, do you see in the immediate vicinity of that orange cone?
Objection. Relevancy.
Can we zoom in on the middle of this photograph, please? Do you recognize an object within a few inches of that cone?
Objection.
Yeah.
Speculation.
I can see what it is, but I don't personally recognize it.
When you say you don't personally recognize it, what do you mean?
Leading. Objection. Leading.
Overruled.
And move to Exhibit 71. Excuse me, 72. Is this what these stumps looked like earlier in the day on November 21st, before you saw the red SUV?
Objection. Relevancy.
Overruled.
Let's move to Exhibit 73, please. The car part you referenced earlier, is that what we're looking at here?
Yes.
To your recollection, Was that car parked in your neighbor's backyard before you saw the red SUV on November 21st?
Objection, speculation.
And we now, so just for the witness, exhibit 143. You recognize the vehicle in this photograph?
Yeah, this is the vehicle that I mentioned that sustained a little bit more damage.
And where in the vehicle do you see damage? The front, the back, both, or neither?
Leading. Objection.
Are exhibits 143, 144, and 145 accurate photographs depicting the scene as you recall from that night?
Yeah.
Move exhibits 143, 144, and 145 into evidence and ask to publish.
Objection. Relevancy to this matter.
Okay, we're looking at 143. This is the vehicle you described?
Yeah.
Now we'll take a look at 144, please. This is the front of that same vehicle.
Objection. Relevancy to this matter.
Overruled. The exhibits have been received.
145. The balcony on the left, that's your next door neighbor's house?
Yes.
And this is the same, this Infiniti we see in this photograph, that's the same vehicle we saw in the last two photographs.
Objection. Lead.
Prospect is where in relation to the photographer?
Objection. Relevancy.
Overruled.
So if you were to drive a vehicle between that porch and that Infiniti vehicle, straight through that alley that we're looking at right now, you would be driving toward or away from your house?
Objection. Hearsay.
Overruled.
Objection. Speculation.
Overruled.
Thank you, that's all I have for this witness.
Any cross?
Yep. So seeing the damage to the SUV that was parked in your driveway, it would be fair to say that the hood was pretty jacked up. Would that be fair to say?
If we're talking about the red SUV,
The vehicle in your driveway.
there's multiple vehicles in my driveway.
The one that's specifically in your driveway in 68, exhibit 68. Where is it 68?
You see on your screen, Mr. Burke?
Yeah,
Is that the
yes.
one you want him to talk about?
Yes.
Go
yes,
ahead.
yes.
68 is published.
And for the record, I do not identify by that name or consent to being called. For the record, can you see it on your screen?
Yeah, the image I can see two SUVs, our white SUV and then the red SUV that I mentioned is that's pretty well beat up.
Fair to say that hood is pretty beat up.
You can say it, yeah.
And you said you observed the driver of that vehicle jump over the hood. So what would you characterize as a jump?
Sort of evading the vehicle, going away from it.
So would it be safe to say evading the vehicle? Well, let me back up. What do you mean by evading? Would that be trying to distance themselves from the vehicle, or what would you define as evading?
Kind of jump over it, I guess you can say.
So that falls in what your definition of jumped over the hood would mean. Would that be fair to say?
You can say.
And you said at one point when observing this, you closed the blinds at one point?
When I heard the big scratch, as I looked out, as I peeped over the blinds, I was able to see the person sort of evading, jumping over the car, going away from the car.
You said you heard a scratch. What would you define that as?
Maybe not like a chalkboard one, but maybe like metal or maybe something on concrete. I guess you can define it as a scrape. The sound that I heard, I defined it as a scratch, or I guess you can say a scrape because it was.
I'm sorry, you can continue.
Because it was more. It was a little bit longer than just kind of like a big crash and it ended. You can hear something scraping.
So like a scrape.
Yeah.
But not a loud like bang.
Not necessarily, no.
How long would you estimate you were observing before you closed the blinds?
I would say I would give it like a good 6 seconds.
Did anything get damaged in your driveway?
Like that log that we can see in the image was sort of dragged into our driveway. There was oil left in our driveway. There was debris left in our driveway as well.
So it was more like oil, logs, pieces of wood, that sort of thing? Yeah,
things were out of place.
And you stated that you can tell the general direction of Maple Street from your window, but you can't actually see it?
Yeah.
So that'd be fair to say?
Yeah.
So if leaving your driveway, going towards Maple Street, if someone were to go right or left at that point, you wouldn't be able to tell?
If you're heading left, you are heading towards Maple Avenue. There's no other way.
And once coming from your driveway, if someone was headed that way, once they got to Maple, would you be able to see them at that point?
Not on Maple Street, no.
And you didn't get a description of the driver?
What was the question, sorry?
You didn't get a description of the driver?
When I was questioned by the detectives that visited us, I remember giving a good description of the driver, sure as it being not someone very young, maybe not an older individual, physically capable of being able to run away.
And you made that determination just by 5 or 6 seconds of observation out of your window?
Yeah.
You testified earlier that you saw someone, but you didn't see him face to face. That'd be fair to say?
Yeah.
And the logs that ended up in your yard,
You stated that they came from your neighbor's yard. Would that be fair to say?
Correct.
Do you know what they used those logs for?
Not really just there for use, but more they were just kind of put there for them to sit around.
So pretty much just if they're out there in the yard, they may use them to sit on, some of that nature.
Correct, yeah.
You recall how many logs were out there?
Not necessarily.
And you stated at some point you and friends or family member, I'm not sure which one you said, but y'all kind of gathered around the vehicle at some point?
I was the first one to head on down. I tried contacting my neighbors, and I told them that there's a vehicle in our driveway, and so everybody came out.
So it was more of a let's go see what he's talking about and figure out if it belongs to anyone type of thing.
That was the main purpose.
So what did you guys do from that point after coming out and kind of all collectively observing the vehicle? What did you do from that point?
We contacted the police.
So it'd be fair to say at that point it was just confusion. No knowledge of anything happening at that point.
No, at that moment we just saw a vehicle in our driveway and we were trying to figure out what was going on.
Do you recall what you were doing right when you looked out the blinds? Like what were you doing leading up to hearing the scrape and then looking out the blinds?
I was just kind of sitting down.
At the point that you called law enforcement, do you recall how long before law enforcement came to the scene?
Our neighbors called law enforcement, so I couldn't really say an exact time.
I'm sorry, can you clear the exhibit? I forgot it was...
It happens.
I forgot it
It's
was
late.
Do you recall who took the photographs?
The photographs? No.
Were they part of the collective group that all kind of met up to figure out what was going on with the vehicle?
Nobody was actually taking photographs during that time.
The photographs that you saw on the exhibits today, was this your first time seeing those photographs?
The photographs specifically, yes, but the vehicle and the whole scenery, no.
No, just the photographs. Was what you saw today, was that your first time seeing those photographs?
These photographs?
Yeah.
No.
So you've seen them before today?
Like I said, I was able to see sort of the whole situation, and I was able to sort of, be aware of what was going on.
I'm asking specifically about the exhibits, the photos. Had you seen those before today?
Before today, yes.
And do you recall who showed them to you?
It was mostly just detectives trying to figure out what was going on, sort of that line of questioning.
And you did say you don't know who took the photographs. Do you recall if the law enforcement that came to the scene took the photos?
They were trying to investigate what was going on. There was investigators taking photographs.
So to the best of your knowledge, you do know who took the photographs?
Not personally, no.
So multiple officers?
Yes.
And that night of the incident when the vehicle was found and the law enforcement officers were taking the photos, did you see the photos at that time?
No.
Would it be fair to say that you were subpoenaed to come and testify today?
I was subpoenaed to come testify.
Do you recall by whom?
By not the state, but the city of Waukesha.
District Attorney's Office, officer? Or?
When I received the subpoena letter, it was just from Waukesha.
Do you recall when you received that subpoena?
2 months before this happened, or before.
Before today, you mean?
Sometime in August.
The neighbor who's, as we saw in the photos in the exhibit, there was a neighbor whose car had scrapes. Do you recall if they filed any claim in regards to the scrapes?
In regards to the scrapes, no.
Do you recall having any conversations with the owner of the vehicle at some point? Maybe they may have wanted to ask if anyone heard what had transpired. Do you recall having any conversations with him about what happened that night?
Objection. Hearsay.
Grounds.
Well, the way that he asked it is just, did they have conversations? I'll let the witness answer that specific question without disclosing the content.
Was anyone else present in your home the night of the incident that may have seen anything to your recollection?
Not necessarily.
Was your family vehicles damaged?
Our vehicles, no.
After you contacted your neighbors who were downstairs, do you recall anyone telling you that their vehicles may have been damaged in any way?
At the moment of the incident?
Yes.
No.
After the law enforcement came to the scene, I'm sure that you had brief conversations with them. Did anyone from law enforcement ever contact you again after that point about additional information that maybe you missed that night?
It was that same night. We were just contacted once. And then the day after the incident, we were contacted again.
So any time after the day after, did you have any contact with any law enforcement about the incident of that night?
That day after I did, yeah.
And then after that, none?
After that, yeah.
Was that a ways off, a little time after, or was it still relatively close to the event?
So the first times that I was sort of contacted by detectives was the day after, and and I was contacted later on by sort of victim help, but we never really reached out.
You just said victim help. Can you explain what victim help is?
Well, I couldn't really specify what it is because I really never reached out. Our house was sort of in the whole mess, and
right, with
we sort of
vehicle being found in your driveway.
We were sort of pretty shaken up about the situation too.
Why didn't you follow up with victim care if you had a few concerns after the incident? What prompted you not to follow up with victim care?
Objection.
Grounds.
Relevance.
And are you aware who the plaintiff is in this matter?
Yes.
And who would the plaintiff be?
Plaintiff being sort of, or I guess you can say the defendant, Darrell Brooks.
The defendant would be the plaintiff?
Or not the defendant, but a plaintiff, or I guess, what's it called? Could you kind of sort of
The plaintiff would be who is actually bringing the claim.
Oh, the plaintiff bringing the claim?
Who's bringing the claim would be the plaintiff.
That would be this city of Waukesha, sorry.
The city of Waukesha?
I'm confused by the questioning, if I'm going to be completely honest.
And I'll object and move to strike the line of questioning for relevance.
He answered it. May stand. Next question, please.
And you stated that at that time you didn't. There was confusion about what was going on. So just so we're clear, you at that time you didn't learn any information about what had transpired at the parade at that time.
Can you specify what time?
At the time that you observed the vehicle in your driveway and then had the initial, I guess, friends and family kind of like...
Oh, during that time window?
During that time, yeah.
During that time window, like you mentioned, as soon as I witnessed the vehicle, I had no idea what was going on.
And you stated you saw people running from the downtown area or from the other way. I can't remember which one you said, but you said you saw it was kind of like people were kind of all over the place.
Not necessarily all over the place, I would say. There was a cohesion as to the direction that people were leaving. People were heading towards, not towards, but more away from downtown Waukesha. So
you said like a library coming from the way of a library or something.
The library is closest to the downtown Waukesha area. So they were heading away from that sort of general direction.
You made a reference to they was going towards the direction where train tracks were?
Yeah, so that'd be going away.
Do you recall how many people it were? Was it a lot of people?
There was quite a bit of people, yeah.
Generally like a crowd?
I guess you can say.
Did any one of them mention what had happened at that time that you recall? Grounds.
You just want to know if he talked to them?
I was asking, did he, to his recollection, did any one of the people that was moving away from the area, did they say anything that he recalls?
Calls for hearsay. Do you want someone to sustain the objection?
You can sustain. That'd do it. No more questions.
Okay, thank you. Any redirect?
Very, very briefly, Your Honor. Could we please put up exhibit number 66? And while we're waiting for that to come up on the jury monitors, I'll ask Arashiga, from the moment you arrived downstairs and saw the vehicle in your driveway until the moment that the police arrived, were you standing near the vehicle that whole time?
Objection. Relevancy.
When you say balcony, you're referring to the front balcony closest to Maple?
Leading.
So you're talking about the backyard.
Objection. Leading.
From the moment you got downstairs until the moment the first responders arrived, did you see anybody else walk up to the vehicle?
Objection.
Aside from your group. Just hold on a second. Wait to address it.
Speculation.
Overruled.
Sorry, can you repeat the question? I forgot about it.
From the moment you got downstairs, saw the SUV in your driveway, until the moment that the first responders arrived, did you see anybody else walk up to the vehicle?
Objection. Speculation.
Overruled.
No.
Can we zoom in on the house in exhibit number 66, please?
Objection. Relevancy.
Do you see the window that you were looking out of on the second floor in this picture?
Yes.
Can you circle it for us?
Here. Or, yeah.
Can we please preserve that annotation, mark it as 66A, and I'd move that into evidence?
Objection. What's the relevancy?
Your objections noted. 66A is received.
And I have nothing else.
Was he on your list of subpoenas?
I don't believe so.
Okay, then he may be dismissed. Or excused, sorry. Okay, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I have the instruction once again to read to you. Please do not begin your deliberations and discussion of the case until all the evidence is presented and I have instructed you on the law,